The alarm lights flashed crazily in the corridor of Skyhaven, and the dazzling red light illuminated Xiao Yi's pale face. He stared closely at the homemade monitor in his hand. The energy curve on the screen plummeted like a cliff, and the red warning on the main structure of the fortress flickered like the pulse of death. The air was filled with the smell of engine oil and sweat, and the noise of residents could be heard in the distance. They were still fighting for the last batch of synthetic food in the leisure area, unaware that the floating paradise was about to turn into a falling hell. Collapse? Ha, you madman is talking nonsense again. A fat mechanic pushed away the crowd and sprayed foam into Xiao Yi's face. The people around burst into laughter, and a woman screamed, "Xiao Yi, you stay in the ruined simulation room every day and get nervous. The fortress is supported by high technology, how could it possibly fall? Get away, don't scare the children." The children hid behind their mother, but the fear in their eyes made Xiao Yi's heart sink. He gritted his teeth, the data did not lie, the energy core was overloaded, and the countdown to the collapse of the floating engine was less than 2 hours. But these parasitic insects in heaven would only laugh at his delusions. Xiao Yi turned around and squeezed out of the crowd, his steps quick and his mind rapidly calculating. It is impossible to fight alone, he needs a partner who can fight his way out. Gu Han, that cold-blooded melee maniac, the guy who tore apart mutated beasts in the black market fighting arena, just owed him a favor. Xiao Yi went straight to the bottom cabin, and the iron door opened with a bang. Smoke filled the inside. Gu Han was naked to the waist, his muscles were like iron, and his fist hit the sandbag with a thunderous sound. Sweat slid down the scar, and the smell of blood filled the air. The sandbags were stuffed not with sand, but with animal meat residue. Gu Han, Skyhaven is going to be finished. Grab 2 escape pods from me, or else we will all become meat and potatoes. Xiao Yi looked directly into those cold eyes. Gu Han stopped, his fist dripping with blood, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. Where's the evidence, kid? The trap information you mentioned last time made me kill 3 more beasts. If it's false this time, I'll chop you up. Xiao Yi threw out the monitor, and the data suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Gu Han's pupils shrank, he grabbed the battle axe. Let's go. Outside the control room, the security team has blocked the passage. Xiao Yi crouched down and crawled through the ventilation duct, his clothes soaked with sweat. The inside of the duct was as hot as a steamer, and footsteps roared in the distance. He whispered, 3 security guards are in front, and 2 snipers are on the high platform. Gu Han, you charge from the left, and I'll set up a trap to intercept the rear. Gu Han nodded, and sprang out like a ghost, the axe blade cutting through the air. Before the first security guard could draw his gun, his head had already rolled off, hot blood spurted like a spring, and the fishy smell filled the air instantly. Enemy attack. Fire. Gunshots rang out, and the bullets grazed Gu Han's shoulders and tore the cloth. He roared and jumped, smashing the sniper's helmet with his axe, brains flying everywhere. The other person was so scared that his legs were weak and his pants were wet. Monster, you are a monster. Gu Han smiled, tell your fortress master that this is a doomsday gift. Xiao Yi jumped out from behind and threw out a homemade electromagnetic pulse bomb. The lights in the passage went out and the security guard's communicator screamed. He pounced on the last one, smashed his opponent's knees with his knees, and grabbed the gun at his throat. Password. Escape cabin activation code. The security captain's face turned pale and his teeth chattered. You are crazy, the fortress will not collapse. Ah. Xiao Yi pressed hard with his fingers, and the sound of bone cracking was heard, and the other party spat out the code. The 2 rushed into the control room. Xiao Yi tapped the holographic panel with flying fingers. The 2 escape hatches opened with a hiss and were filled with limited supplies, 3 days of compressed rations, 2 energy guns, a box of medical capsules and several trap modules. Gu Han picked up the supply box and grinned, boy, you did a good job. The moment the hatch closed, the fortress was shaken. The floor tilted, the walls cracked, and screams came flooding in. Xiao Yi looked through the cabin window. The energy core exploded, flames shot into the sky, and the giant floating structure capsized like a giant bird with broken wings. Residents fell from the leisure area. The cries of women and children and the curses of men were mixed together. Some people smashed the windows and asked for help, "Help me. We have children." But the escape hatch was locked. Gu Han growled, "Launch." The propeller roared and the cabin ejected, the inertia weighing down the two of them. Below, the main body of Skyhaven smashed into the ruined city, and the impact was like a doomsday punishment. Debris from the ground buildings flew everywhere, dust rose into the sky, seismic waves spread like a tsunami, and the roars of the mutant beasts in the distance resounded through the sky. The escape capsule fell bumpily. Xiao Yi fastened his seatbelt tightly, his heart beating like a drum. "Stay steady, aim at the edge of the ruins." Boom! The cabin smashed into the remains of a leaning building. The sound of shattering glass was harsh and smoke filled the air. Xiao Yi kicked open the cabin door, and the smell of decaying ruins hit his face, the stench of moldy corpses, rust, and beast excrement. They tumbled to the ground, crates forming in the supply boxes. Gu Han immediately jumped up, battle axe in hand, and glanced around. "The herd is coming." 3 mutated beasts emerged from the shadows. Their bodies were like twisted wolves and oxen, their skin was cracked and pus-filled, and their claws scraped against the ground, making a harsh sound of metal friction. The leading beast king roared, yellow saliva dripping, corroding the ground and making a sizzling sound. The first one pounced on Gu Han. Gu Han dodged sideways, the axe blade cut into the belly of the beast, and the intestines were dragged out. The smell of blood was so strong that it made people sick. The beast was still struggling, but Gu Han crushed its head with a kick, and its brains splashed onto Xiao Yi's boots, the first one. The second beast came around and attacked Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi knew he was outmatched, and the ruined terrain flashed through his mind. There were loose steel bars among the broken walls. He deliberately backed away and kicked a piece of concrete, inviting the beast to pursue him. The beast's claws grabbed him, and he rolled to the ground to get out of the way. The beast's body hit the steel pile and broke with a click. The steel bar pierced the beast's chest, and blood poured out. The third beast witnessed the tragic death of its companion, and hesitated with red eyes. Gu Han laughed and jumped on it. "It's your turn." The axe struck 3 times in a row, and the beast's head flew up and rolled down to Xiao Yi's feet. Blood spurted from its broken neck and steam steamed. Gu Han gasped and wiped the axe blade, and looked at Xiao Yi. "Boy, your trap is not bad." His voice was rarely trembling, not with fear, but with excitement. A strategist actually reversed the situation of the battle in the ever-changing situation. Xiao Yi stood up, dusted off the dust, and checked the supplies. Only enough rations for 3 days, half a box of medical capsules, and limited ammunition. "This is just an appetizer. The fall of the fortress will cause earthquakes, and the beasts will swarm us. We need to find bunkers and fortify ourselves. The night is like ink pouring, and the wind is howling in the ruins, mixed with the low roar of animals in the distance." At first it was a single point, but gradually it became a chorus. The roars of dozens or hundreds of mutated beasts converged into thunder, and the ground trembled slightly and dust flew up. Xiao Yi squinted and saw red dots flashing in the darkness. Those were the eyes of the beasts, dense as a galaxy, approaching them. Gu Han gripped the handle of the axe tightly, veins popped out on his forehead. "At least 100, boy, can we hold on?" As soon as Xiao Yi finished speaking, the ground trembled violently like a drum head. A crack snaked out from under their feet. The gravel bounced up and hit their calves. The dust rushed into their faces, choking Gu Han and causing him to cough repeatedly. The roar of the beast in the distance is very close at hand, the red eyes flicker in the night like will-o'-the-wisps, the rotten beast's breath is mixed with the smell of blood and excrement, floating in the wind, making people feel sick in their stomachs. "Boy, stop bragging. There are hundreds of beasts, and the ammunition is only enough to kill half of them. Our rations can't last 3 days. Gu Han growled, clenching the battle axe tightly, his knuckles turning white, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead, mixed with the blood on his shoulders. He glanced around, and for the first time, a trace of despair flashed in his eyes. The wreckage of the escape cabin had become an iron coffin, and the supply box was open. 3 days of compressed rations lay inside like a mockery. Each person could only get 2 rations per day. The energy gun magazine was fully loaded with only 40 rounds left. A half box of medical capsules was enough to bandage a few serious injuries. Xiao Yi ignored his question, squatted down and grabbed a handful of loose steel bars, his eyes flashing coldly. Despair. This ruin is our fortress. We retreat to the collapsed shopping mall first. The beasts love to chase heat sources, so we use cooling capsules to cover up the smell. Gu Han, you carry the supply box, and I will stop behind. Gu Han's eyes widened, and his muscles were as tense as a bowstring. Are you crazy? There might be a pack of rats or an ambush in the mall. But he still gritted his teeth and carried the box, and the sound of heavy metal collisions echoed in the night wind. Xiao Yi threw out a trap module, and the activated electromagnetic net spread out at the footprints. The invisible force field buzzed. The first mutated rat beast to test pounced on him and was instantly minced into pulp. The plasma spattered and the fishy smell became stronger. Gu Han glanced back and his throat rolled. Boy, this thing of yours is really fucking evil. His voice was trembling, not because he was afraid, but because he was shocked by this accurate prediction. They rushed into the ruins of the shopping mall. The broken glass made a crunching sound. The air was filled with a mixture of rotten food and corpse odor. The moonlight shone from the broken roof, lengthening the shadows. Xiao Yi calculated while running, the consumption standard for 3 people is 1 liter of water, 1 ration, and 2 capsules per person per day. There are 2 of us now, and we have enough food for 6 days, but there is 0 water source and only emergency medical care is available. Prioritize food and water. Gu Han, there are mutated rats in the ruins of the granary on the east side. The cans can last for a week. Attack them. Gu Han grinned, fighting spirit igniting in his eyes. Finally we have work to do. He jumped out like a tiger, swinging his battle axe into the wind, smashing open an iron door, and the rats inside screamed out. Dozens of mutant rats as big as fists, with greasy fur, teeth like saws, and eyes as red as blood. They pounced on Gu Han, scratching his trousers with their claws, blood seeping out, and the foul-smelling rat urine spilled onto the ground and corroded the cement. Get away, you beast! Gu Han roared, the axe blade swept across, and the 3 rat heads flew together. The brains splashed on the wall and slid down. The sticky touch made him throw away his hands in disgust. But the rats were like a tidal wave, biting his boots. Gu Han staggered back, his shoulder wound split open and blood flowed profusely. Damn, too many, he gasped and shouted, a rare panic flashing in his eyes. Xiao Yi rushed up from behind and fired 2 bullets from the energy gun. The blue arc exploded. The rats were charred black and the smell of roasted meat was tangy. But ammunition was as expensive as gold, so he put away his gun and shouted, lure them into the pit. Earlier, he had used a trap module to loosen the floor, and the steel bars were erected like a trap. Gu Han understood, and roared to attract the enemy. The rats swarmed after him, and the leader rat fell in. With a click, the steel bars were twisted into the body, the sound of bone and flesh tearing was ear-piercing, the flesh and blood were hung on the iron thorns, the intestines were dragged and dripping, and the hot blood was steaming into mist. Subsequently, the rats stepped on the bloody ground and fell one after another. The strangulation pit instantly turned into a meat grinder. Screams, bone-crushing, and blood-spraying intertwined into a doomsday symphony. Gu Han's eyes widened, and the axe stopped in mid-air. This, serial strangulation. Boy, how did you think of it? The angle of the loose floor, the buried steel bars, perfect. His voice trembled, admiration was like fire, sweat mixed with blood slipped down, and he gasped for the first time as if he was bowing his head to someone. The corners of Xiao Yi's mouth raised slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He glanced around, the steel frames of collapsed high-rise buildings, broken sewers, scattered metal fragments, perfect trap materials. Can't hold on. We're going to kill them. But the roar of the beast was mixed with a thunderous roar, which was far beyond that of ordinary beasts, as if a giant had awakened. The two looked at each other, and their hearts sank. A greater crisis was coming from the depths of the ruins. While taking stock, a woman's scream was heard in the distance, mixed with the sound of metal scraping against the ground by animal claws. Xiao Yi looked up. In the shadow of the ruins, a slender figure was surrounded by 5 mutated dogs. The dog's body was like a cow, its skin was ulcerated and pus-filled, and its saliva corroded the ground and smoked. The woman was huddled behind the broken wall, her clothes were in tatters, she was holding a broken iron pipe in her hand, her face was as pale as paper. Help, help. Her voice was trembling and crying. Gu Han instinctively jumped up, there are survivors. But Xiao Yi stopped him, wait a minute, the beasts will follow. Gu Han, you force the left wing, I will set up a second ring trap, use a tire to strangle. Gu Han was stunned, second ring. So fast. But he had already rushed out, killing like a strong wind. The first dog pounced, he ducked low, the axe blade disemboweled him from bottom to top, the internal organs slid out and splashed on the ground, the hot and fishy smell was so strong that the woman retched. The second dog came around and bit his leg. Gu Han smashed the dog's head with his backhand. The head cracked like a melon exploding, and a mixture of gray and white brain blood splashed onto the woman's face. She screamed and backed away, her eyes full of fear. You are the devil. Xiao Yi has laid a trap, the tires of the scrap car are untied and there are wires hidden inside. The remaining 3 dogs chased after him and fell in. The first ring of steel bars was pierced, and the second ring of tires caught and crushed the spine. There was a constant squeak of bones cracking, and blood and flesh splattered like minced meat. The last dog saw the miserable condition of its companion and hesitated with its red eyes. Gu Han laughed and jumped on it, splitting it in half with an axe. The severed limb twitched and the blood pool spread. The woman sat paralyzed, staring at Xiao Yi's trap, her lips trembling. Is this a human setup? Impossible. How could those beasts be wiped out? Her eyes turned from fear to shock. Gu Han picked her up and said roughly, you have a clever plan, woman, you are lucky. Tell me your name. Rat carcasses piled up in the pit. Xiao Yi jumped down and picked up a dozen rusty cans of corn and refried beans, enough energy for 3 people for 5 days. He strictly counts, 1.5 cans per person per day, and no waste is allowed. There is no water source yet, so I need 2 medical capsules to stop Gu Han's bleeding. Yes, now we have the confidence. Gu Han wiped the axe blade and watched Xiao Yi skillfully distribute it. A strange look flashed in his eyes. Your brain, the trash in the fortress laughed at you as a lunatic, what now? In the camp, the firelight flickered, reflecting the faces of the 3 people. Xiao Yi counted the total supplies, 8 days of rations, plus canned food, 40 medical capsules left, water still lacking, a daily limit of 1 liter per person, 38 energy bullets, and 3 trap modules left. Yi Ji knelt down to treat Gu Han's wound. The capsule was sprayed to stop the bleeding, and the disinfectant smell was pungent. While bandaging, she whispered, Brother Gu's injury is not serious, we need to save capsules. Xiao Yi, your distribution is too cruel. Why is the ration only divided into 1.5? We have to support each other, don't we? Gu Han frowned, his muscles twitched. Woman, shut up. The boy saved us, listen to him. But Yi Jihong stared at Xiao Yi, you are as cold as a machine. That woman screamed just now, and your first reaction was a trap, not a rescue. What if there are children? Materials are unevenly distributed, and sooner or later there will be internal fighting. The air was stagnant, and veins bulged in Gu Han's hand holding the axe, staring at Xiao Yi, waiting for his response. Yi, doctor, I used to be in the Skyhaven medical area. She gasped, her hands trembling, but her eyes flashed with tenacity. I know medical skills, can treat wounds, and count supplies. Join me instead, don't leave me. Xiao Yi nodded and checked that she had no bites. Deal. But listen. Order, I'll take care of the supplies. Gu Han grinned, welcome, new partner. Yi was helped up and watched as Xiao Yi quickly surrounded the camp with fragments of the escaped cabin and scrap cars. 4 overturned trucks formed a wall, the tires were stacked and sealed, and an iron plate was laid on the top, with weak fluorescent sticks lit inside to avoid detection by the beast's eyes. She murmured, building a camp so quickly? Even the fortress engineering team can't do it. Who are you? Xiao Yi dodged sideways, grabbed the opponent's wrist, and made a click sound, and the bones cracked. The man groaned and knelt down, his hood slipped off, revealing a thin face with eyes like an eagle, and his body was covered in dirt and blood. Don't kill. I am Qin Feng, scout. There is a large amount of supplies in the nearby large supermarket, with mountains of water, food, and ammunition. But they are occupied by looters, more than 20 people, holding guns and setting up traps. The beast tide is about to encircle them. They can't stop it, and you can't stop it. Qin Feng gasped, staring at the severed wrist on the ground, sweating like rain. His eyes were shocked. Your reaction is as fast as an animal. Yi gasped, and Gu Han pressed the axe blade against Qin Feng's neck. Evidence. Qin Feng threw out the holographic projection, and images of the supermarket popped up. The shelves were overturned, cans and buckets were all over the floor, predators were laughing at the loot, the roar of the beast was approaching in the distance, and the sea of red eyes was surging like a tidal wave. Xiao Yi squinted his eyes and calculated in his mind, the supermarket is 2 kilometers away, the predators are greedy, and the tide of beasts will lead to chaos. Opportunity. Join us, intelligence will change your life. But if you dare to betray, the steel pit is waiting for you. Qin Feng's throat rolled, staring at the remaining blood in the camp trap, trembling. Deal, boss, your camp is simply an art. Gu Han laughed, but Yi's face turned pale, and he doubted more. How could this man subdue the scout so easily? Outside the camp, the beasts roared into thunder, the ground trembled, and the red eyes were reflected in fluorescent light. The crisis was like a net, tightening. Xiao Yi stood up and raised the corner of his mouth. Take a rest for 2 hours and raid the supermarket at dawn. Prepare to slaughter people and animals. Gu Han's pupils shrank and he growled excitedly, boy, you are a fucking god. Yi gritted his teeth, feeling inwardly, where will this cold-blooded strategist take us? The dim light of the fluorescent sticks in the camp swayed, reflecting the tensed faces of everyone. Qin Feng's wrist was as swollen as a steamed bun, and Yi hurriedly sprayed the capsule. The pungent disinfectant smell mixed with blood filled the air. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain, and whispered the supermarket hologram, boss, the leader of the predators is called He Lang, and he is armed with a modified submachine gun, number 23 people, the east gate is blocked by trucks, there are snipers on the west side of the stairs, the abandoned elevator shaft at the back door leads directly to the underground warehouse, the buckets are piled into the wall, and the ammunition boxes are shining golden, but the beast tide has bitten there. Tails, the red I see is 500 meters away, and the roar is like thunder. The blade was sharply polished, the muscles were bulging, and he was breathing heavily with excitement. Boy, night attack. Their vigilance is lax. Yi's face turned pale, and he trembled, it's too dangerous. There are only 4 of us, and we don't have enough ammunition. Xiao Yi glanced over with cold eyes and grabbed the trap. Module raised his lips slightly, danger. When they fight among themselves, we are the gods of death. Qin Feng came around and set off smoke bombs to cause chaos. Gu Han forced his way to the east gate to kill the leader, and Yi Ji and I set up oil barrels in flames and caused the stairs to collapse. Use all 3 modules. Move. 2 hours passed in a blink of an eye, the night wind howled and smelled like animals, and the ground trembled slightly like a heartbeat. The team sneaked out of the camp like ghosts. The tire pit behind the truck wall was still bloody. Qin Feng limped and led the way, moving as quickly as a mouse through the ruined alley. Boss, the lights in the supermarket are still on, and the looters are sharing the spoils and having a carnival. They are drunk. Gu Han roared, kill them. Yi Ji followed Xiao Yi closely, the corners of his clothes were torn with a soft sound, and his heartbeat was like a drum. What if the trap fails? Xiao Yi threw a cooling capsule at her, shut up and cover up the smell. The 2-kilometer journey felt like an eternity. The neon light of the supermarket in the distance was dazzling, and the laughter and curses floated. Boss, this batch of water is enough for us to drink for half a year. Kill those waste survivors one by one. The Black Wolf's voice was as rough as an animal, and the bottle shattered with a single shot, and the glass shattered with a crisp sound. Outside the supermarket, oil drums were scattered like tombstones, and the smell of alcohol and rotten meat lingered in the air. Qin Feng slipped into the elevator shaft at the back door and threw a smoke bomb. Bang, white mist spurted out, making the predator cough and curse. What the hell? A tide of beasts is coming. Xiao Yi had sneaked close to the east gate, loosened 3 oil barrels, activated the trap module, and connected the invisible leads into a network. He shouted, Gu Han, get in. Gu Han rushed out like a tank, with his battle axe raised high, his muscles torn and bloodshot from his shoulder wound, and he shouted, he's here to die. The truck at the east gate collapsed with a crash, and the sound of tearing iron sheets was harsh. The predators woke up and fired with guns. The bullets grazed Gu Han's arms, and the smell of blood bloomed and burned. He rolled in with a low body, and cut off the first man's legs with the axe blade. Ah, he screamed like a pig, the severed limbs twitched and spurted blood, and the hot and fishy ground sizzled and corroded the cement. The Black Wolf pounced on him, his submachine gun spitting fire, and the bullet shells clinked to the ground. Die, you bull. Gu Han shouldered 3 bullets, and the blood hole in his chest was smoking. He roared and fought back. His axe smashed the barrel of the Black Wolf's gun, and sparks flew everywhere. He grabbed the leader's throat and twisted it like breaking chopsticks. The trachea was shattered. The Black Wolf's eyes bulged, and he fell to the ground with blood spraying from his mouth. The body was twitching like an insect. The looters were in a mess, and more than 20 people swarmed out. The sound of gunshots was like a torrential rain. Kill this madman. The bullets screamed, and Gu Han's back was shot and his blood was bloody. He staggered and shouted, boy, hold on. Yi Ji screamed and covered her mouth, with despair in her eyes. Brother Gu is going to die. Xiao Yi's eyes were like knives, and he pressed the detonator. The first layer of traps was triggered, and the oil barrels exploded in series. Boom, the sea of fire swallowed the sky, orange flames jumped 10 meters, and the heat wave scorched their hair. The 10 plunderers instantly turned into human-shaped torches, their flesh was scorched and curled, and they screamed like ghosts, burn me to death. Oh my God! They rolled to the ground and wailed, the oil fire spread, black smoke billowed from burning tires, and the choking poisonous fog covered the sky. The survivor coughed up blood and retreated, his face blackened and twisted. Monster! How can this fire start on its own? Qin Feng rushed out from the back well, smearing the 2 people's throats with daggers, and shot out blood arrows like a fountain. He gasped, Boss, it's amazing. Their way back is cut off. But the sniper opened fire from the stairs, and the bullet penetrated the smoke and brushed Xiao Yi's ears, and the hot wind burned his ears. Xiao Yi sneered. The second module activated the stairs and collapsed. Boom, mountains of steel and concrete fell, and fragments fell like meteorites. The sniper and 5 people fell down together. There was a constant sound of broken bones and flesh, plasma rained down, and there was a sea of blood in the pits on the ground, and the stench evaporated into mist. The remaining plunderers collapsed and knelt down, throwing their guns all over the ground. "Spare your lives. We surrender." Gu Han rushed forward with his bloody body, and swept the heads of the three of them with an axe. Their brains splashed on the wall and fell sticky. He laughed. "Surrender? It's too late." His eyes were as wild as an animal. In the melee, a figure jumped out from behind the shelf, a woman with messy short hair, oil stains on her body, holding a chainsaw converted into a gun, and her eyes as alert as a fox. She dodged to avoid the flames and kicked the last predator over. The chainsaw buzzed and cut off his arm. The smell of burning flesh and blood exploded, and the man screamed and passed out. She turned around and stared at Xiao Yi, her pupils narrowed. This series of fire sees and collapses, the angle is accurate to the millimeter. I am Tang Yue, an engineer, who has been trapped in this group of pigs for 3 days. Let me join, and I will modify your trap to double its power." Xiao Yi glanced at her and nodded. "Prove it." Without saying a word, Tang Yue picked up the remains of the oil drum, and quickly welded the fuel pipe and pressure valve. There was a crunching sound of metal bites, and she threw out the tester. "Test bomb, look!" A barrel-simulated explosion, and the pillar of fire reached 20 meters into the sky. The heat wave overturned the shelves. Gu Han's eyes widened, and the axe fell to the ground. "Woman, are you a fucking magician? This power, I can chop it with one axe. Don't open it." Qin Feng's throat rolled, and he forgot the pain of breaking his wrist. "Boss, this team is invincible." Yi Ji rushed towards Gu Han, spraying the capsule to stop the bleeding, with tears in her eyes. "You are crazy, but you are alive, you are all alive." The supermarket fell, corpses lay everywhere, and pools of blood shimmered in the light of fire. Xiao Yi directed the inventory, and the massive supplies were like a mountain of treasure. 500 liters of clean water barrels piled on the wall. Each person was rich at 3 liters per day, 2,000 compressed rations, 500 cans, ammunition boxes raining bullets, 20 submachine guns, 500 sniper rounds, 50 fuel barrels, a complete set of medical equipment, antibiotics, infusion sets, and 500 capsules. Total reserves, worry-free January. Tang Yue laughed and modified the truck into an armored wall, with tires reinforced with steel plates and a machine gun position on top. Qin Feng set up an invisible sentry. Gu Han carried the body and cleared the area, and Yi Ji inspected everyone and bandaged bullet holes. The smell of disinfection overwhelmed the smell of blood. She sprayed the capsule and murmured, "Xiao Yi, your coldness saved us. I was wrong, this is the leader." Gu Han patted her on the shoulder, with bloody fingerprints. "This kid is a god. I will follow him." Qin Feng knelt down and pledged his allegiance. "Full information, boss." Tang Yu's welding gun sparks flew, eyes burning with admiration. "Trap artist, I, Tang Yue, am convinced." Xiao Yi sneered and threw a capsule to her. "Sparse use, waste and die quickly." When Skyhaven fell, those, supporting each other, bugs trampled on each other's survival cabins, and women and children died first. Cold. This is survival. Yi Ji bit her lip, confusion and anger flashed in her eyes. "Angry, you changed. You weren't like this in the fortress." Gu Han growled, "That's enough. The boy is right, human nature is shit in the ruins." During the argument, the wind outside the camp suddenly stopped, and a black shadow climbed over the wall like a ghost, and the dagger flashed with cold light, piercing Xiao Yi's throat. But the cheers stopped, the sky roared like thunder, and the earth trembled with nerves. The wreckage of Skyhaven falls for the second time. Huge fragments of the fortress fell into the core of the ruins like a rain of meteorites. The rumbling shock wave overturned trucks. Dust filled the air and choked the lungs. Cracks in the ground snaked like dragons, and steel bars bounced and pierced the air. The supermarket fortress shook, the shelves were toppled and cans rolled down, everyone threw their heads on the ground, their ears were ringing and bloodshot oozed out. Deep in the ruins in the distance, a roar shattered the glass, the ground shook, and the air was torn like an eardrum. Roar. The supergiant beast king appeared. The body is as tall as a building, the scales are like tank shells, the red eyes are like blood moons, the four claws dig at the ground and stir up waves of earth, and the poisonous mist from the mouth corrodes the steel beams with a hissing sound. The beast tide surrendered and followed, and the red-eyed sea surged, approaching the fortress only 1 kilometer away. Gu Han's face turned livid and his axe handle trembled. What the hell kind of monster is this? Yi Ji screamed and hugged his knees. It's over, 1 month of supplies, we can't hold on. Qin Feng's hologram collapsed, and his broken wrist was bleeding again. The intelligence didn't mention this thing. Tang Yue's welding gun fell to the ground, his voice trembling. No matter how powerful it is, it can't be stopped. Xiao Yi stood up, with war flames in his eyes. Ran, panic. This is an opportunity. The Beast King's weakness is in the scale seam under his belly. There is brewed energy in the core of the ruins. We set up the ultimate trap, the sea of fuel and the collapse of the abyss. Get ready, kill the king. Everyone's eyes widened, Gu Han's throat rolled, and he laughed wildly. Boy, you are against the will of God again. The crisis is like a net, tightening to the extreme, the team's heartbeats are ringing, and a new doomsday battle has begun. The steel walls of the fortress creaked and screamed, and the aftershocks were like claws of a giant beast scratching the ground. The cracks snaked up the truck wall on the east side, and the ripping sound of iron sheets was as harsh as fingernails scratching a blackboard. The shelves collapsed and crashed, cans rolled into a river, crushed ration packages exploded and grain powder filled the air, mixed with dust and choked the nose like a sandstorm. The fuel barrels turned sideways, and 10 of the 50 barrels leaked golden liquid and formed a pool of oil. The flickering firelight reflected the blood-red water. The screen flashed and crashed, and the red alert was dazzling, 20% loss. Water reduced by hundreds of liters, rations of 300, and 10 barrels of fuel evaporated. Gu Han climbed up on the ground, the bloody hole in his chest oozing with the residual liquid of the capsule, a sticky and fishy smell. His eyes widened with bloodshot eyes, and the axe handle hit the ground with a muffled sound. Damn it. The heaven just collapsed. The Beast King is still approaching, this fortress is reduced to paper. Yi Ji hugged her knees and huddled up, her cheeks were ashen, tears and dust mixed with mud to create a ditch. It's over, the supplies are gone. We were torn apart before we died of thirst and starvation. Qin Feng broke his wrist and then tore it again. Blood dripped onto the fragments of the hologram. His throat trembled and his voice was like a bellows. Boss, the edges are completely destroyed, beast. The red eyes have swallowed up the fire wall, and the roar is nearly 500 meters away. Tang Yue's welding gun rolled down, his greasy face twisted in despair. My electromagnetic network is disconnected, and the dream of the crossbow tower is ruined. The 5 of us are facing death against the monster high in the building. The new fortress is completed, with steel walls surrounding the screen for flashing monitoring, materials inside neatly stacked, faucets running to test the flow, and rations distributed 3 hot to each person. Everyone sat around, Gu Han chewed the can, and the juice dripped. From despair to heaven, boy, you are so fucking unbelievable. Yi Ji smiled and handed the water, her eyes soft. We are united, we are a family. Tang Yue adjusted the trap net, and the electromagnetic buzz was heard. Qin Feng's hologram update, the beast tide was blocked by the wall of fire and retreated temporarily. The victory was as refreshing as wine, and everyone's laughter echoed, feeling warm for the first time in the apocalypse. Xiao Yi stood up slowly, with a dusty shawl like a war robe, and the flames of war in his eyes, sweeping away everyone like a knife. Panic. Lose 20%, but you are still rich. Obey the order. He grabbed the inventory list, his voice was as cold as an ice blade cutting the air. Water is 399 liters, strictly controlled at 2 liters per person per day. Yi Ji will distribute it on time, and half will be deducted for violations. 1,700 rations, prioritize combatants, Gu Han takes 5 pills of protein a day. 40 barrels of fuel, turn around and repair the cracks on the east side of the truck. 480 medical capsules, all antibiotics are locked in your hands, Yi Ji. The ammunition is not moving, and the sniper is Qin Feng. Move. Everyone was stunned, Gu Han's pupils shrank, and the axe fell to the ground. His muscles swelled again. A low roar rolled up his throat, boy, the earthquake destroyed the sky, but you are still as stable as a mountain. I am convinced. This allocation is a divine plan. Yi Ji wiped away tears and climbed up, with soft light in her eyes, and took the key of the bucket with trembling hands. Xiao Yi, you are so calm. I was wrong, this is a life-saving scripture. Qin Feng stood up with gritted teeth, breaking his wrist and forgetting to pick up the hologram. Boss, resources are heavy health. Intelligence is priority, I'm going to explore the Beast King. Tang Yue picked up the welding gun, with a smile on his face and sparks flying, leadership genius. I will do the repairs, the steel plates will be welded without leaving any seams. The fortress pulsed again, everyone was running like a machine, the welding gun made a continuous sound of melting metal, the faucet was running, the rations were being distributed and the smell of disinfection gradually faded away. Gu Han was carrying the oil drum, his fingerprints were stained with blood, and he laughed, bounced from hell, boy, you are a god-defying leader. Repairs were as urgent as sparks, Tang Yue's hands were flying, dismantling the broken machine in the supermarket and welding it to the ruined steel bars. There was a crisp clicking sound, and she roared, automatic crossbow tower, scrap metal turns into a murder weapon. The tower body jumped 3 meters, the crossbow arms were like giant scorpion pincers, the fuel pipe provided pressure, and the arrow clusters turned into warheads with a cold light. Testing the whoosh burst, it penetrated the steel plate like paper, and the fire tail trailed smoke and scorched the air. Gu Han's eyes widened and he breathed heavily as he touched the tower. Woman, 1 shot of this thing is worth 10 of my axes. Here comes the Beast King, shoot it into a honeycomb. Qin Feng limped out of the invisible whistle and dived to the edge of the ruins. The night wind carried the smell of beast excrement on his face. He was crawling and scanning the hologram. The red light reflected the outline of the Beast King, scales high above the building, blue light faintly pulsing in the scale seams under his belly, green bottles flashing deep in the lair, virus samples. The pipeline is connected to the mother nest energy source, beating like a heart. He rushed back, his face turned pale and he knelt down and gasped, boss. The Beast King's nest contains the original liquid of the virus, and the green bottle is labeled Skyhaven experiment. The brood absorbs the energy from the falling fortress and hatches all the beasts. This is not a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. Everyone gasped. Yi Ji dropped the bucket with trembling hands, splashing the soles of her shoes. Experiment. The top of the fortress is up to something. We ground ants are being used as sacrifices. Gu Han hit the ground with his axe and cracks widened. Fuck. I'll kill those dog officials. Tang Yue's welding gun paused and his pupils shrank. The energy nest, my crossbow tower can explode, but it needs to be close. The world is big, boss, this conspiracy is as deep as the abyss. Xiao Yi's eyes are like Yuan, his fists turned white, the mystery is getting bigger, and the chances are bigger. Supplement the protein first, and hunt the wolves on the edge. Gu Han is the main attack, Qin Feng is the navigation, Tang Yue is covering the crossbow tower to test the fire, I am the rear. Yi Ji is guarding the base and controlling the water. Get out. Late at night, the ruins are like a maze, the broken walls are tilted and shadows are like ghost claws, the moonlight is scattered in the bloody mud pit, and the poisonous mist of the Beast King in the distance is filled with corroding bones and the squeaking sound is endless. The team was sneaking, their footsteps were muddy and sticky, Gu Han's leader's muscles were as tense as iron, and his axe blade was polished and his eyes were red. A pack of wolves appeared, 10 mutated gray wolves with hair like steel needles, fangs dripping with green saliva, sniffing blood and roaring around them, their red eyes locked like a sea of lights. Qin Feng whispered to the hologram, "Boss, 20 meters, weak belly." The wolves rushed towards him. The first one jumped into the air and tore off his clothes with its claws. Gu Han swerved sideways and swept the axe across his spine with a poof. The fountain of hot blood splashed on his face as hot as soup. He laughed wildly, "Come on. I challenge you." The second one bit the old injury on the shoulder, and the teeth were embedded in the flesh and the tearing pain was like burning fire. Gu Han refused to retreat and advanced instead, pressing his knees against the wolf's belly to explode the internal organs, and the intestines were greasy with a snap. His roar shook the forest, "Itchy. Come again." The wolves swarmed, claws rained down, Gu Han danced with the axe in a whirlwind, blood and flesh flew across the mountain of severed limbs, green saliva corroded the axe handle and smoke came out, but he persisted and bit, the hole in his chest was torn open again, and blood was pouring out, and the flesh on his back was rolled and exposed. The third head hit his throat, and he used his backhand to button the eyeball with a "Good juice," and his brains flowed down the axe and stuck to his hand. Qin Feng smeared the throats of 2 wolves with his dagger, and shot blood arrows into the air. Tang Yue's long-distance shot from the crossbow tower pierced the heart of the leading wolf. Xiao Yi's energy gun hummed and shot 3 times in a row, blasting away the flowers in his head. The skull fragments rained down like rain. The wolf pack collapsed, and the remaining 5 fled and howled. Gu Han chased them like tigers and sheep. The rain of axes fell and bones cracked with a crunching sound. The corpses were piled in a pool of blood, and the pieces of protein and meat were piled back on the shoulders. The steaming steam was filled with the smell of meat and the stench of blood. Qin Feng stared and gasped, blood dripping from his broken wrist. "Brother Gu, single-handedly challenged the Wolf Kings. I have been scouting for 10 years and have never seen you. You are a humanoid tank." Tang Yue carried the disassembled crossbow tower, his voice trembling in admiration, "Modification blessing, but you fight hand to hand, the crossbow tower is ashamed. Invincible." Gu Han shook his blood and laughed, spraying the wound capsule pungently. "The protein is enough for half a month, the kid's plan is perfect." But the message from Yi Ji's defense flashed, she was blushing and coughing up blood, and green spots were crawling on her arms, mild infection. "We need an antidote to the virus, and the nest green bottle may be the key." The pressure on the team was overwhelming. On the way back, they strictly controlled the water source. Everyone took a sip of cold, purified water. Yi Ji messaged, "Don't die of thirst, the antidote is priority." Near the fortress, the wolf meat was unloaded from the grill and fried in oil. Qin Feng's mobile trap, used tires filled with fuel, hidden lines connected to the sea of oil barrels, used to delay the herd. The tide of beasts approached 300 meters, and the red-eyed sea roared like thunder. Xiao Yi pressed the fuse to test, and the wall of fire rushed 20 meters. The heat wave scorched the remains of the wolf fur, the beasts howled and retreated, and the black smoke covered the moon and choked the lungs. Qin Feng's throat rolled, "Move the magic trap. Delay it for half an hour." The fluorescent light of the fortress swayed late at night, and everyone sat around gasping for breath. The aroma of wolf meat filled the air. Yi Ji had faint green spots on the capsule wrapped around his arm, and smiled weakly, "The antidote, I believe in you." Gu Han slapped the table, "The Beast King's abdominal slit, virus bottle, I will open the way." Tang Yue adjusted the crossbow tower, eyes burning, "Conspiracy. Blow up the brood." But Qin urgent news from the wind whistle, the red dot flashed on the hologram, "Boss." The remnants of the Marauders, a 20-man alliance, led by the Black Wolf deputy, lurked in the bushes 100 meters away with a rocket launcher, and attacked at night to retaliate. They smell the scent of wolf meat, are greedy and jealous, and are ready to charge. The bushes rustled in the distance, and there was a soft sound of the collision of iron tools. Greedy whispered in the wind, "Black Wolf vengeance, kill them all." Grab all the supplies, and the fortress of flesh and blood belongs to us. Gu Han held the axe in his hand, laughing wildly and saying, human pigs and dogs are here to die again. Yi Ji's face turned pale, and her hand shook the water cup. The infection is not healed, let's fight again. Tang Yue loaded the welding gun, aimed the crossbow tower. Qin Feng crawled in place, information lock. Xiao Yi stood up, with the corner of his mouth slightly raised as cold as a knife, the remnant. New human shield. Queen of beasts, kill the pig first. Attack at night, counterattack. Everyone's pupils exploded. Gu Han's roar shook the wall. Boy, the divine situation is open again. The team is invincible, kneel down in the apocalypse. The crisis is superimposed, humans and beasts are enemies, the heartbeat of the fortress is like a war drum, and murderous intent is boiling in the darkness. The darkness pours like ink, the fluorescent lights of the fortress sway and elongate the figures like ghosts, the residual heat of the wolf meat grill is steaming and the oily smoke is lingering, and the smell of blood and burnt food is alluring. The whispers of bushes in the distance are like snake messages, the clang of iron tools is faint, and the greedy gasps of the predators are mixed with the sound of the wind, the revenge of the black wolf. The fortress is piled with wolf meat, the buckets are flashing, the rocket launcher blasts the door first, and the brothers grab and kill them all. 20 black shadows crawl forward, the cold light of the gun barrel reflects the moon, the red glow of the rocket launcher on the shoulder warms up and buzzes, the face of the leader of the black wolf and his deputy is twisted with scars, and the eyes of the green fire are greedy. Like a hungry wolf, weak meat in the last days, supplies will be strong. Charge! Everyone held their breath. Gu Han's knuckles crackled when he held the handle of the axe, and mucus dripped from the severely injured blood hole on the ground. The smell filled his nostrils. He roared, his throat rolling, I am injured like a dog, how dare you come here to send me away? Boy, let's talk about it. Yi Ji's green spots on her arms pulsated faintly, and her lips were stained with blood when she coughed. She trembled and curled up with her knees, panic in her eyes. 20 people, the bazooka destroyed the fort, and the 5 of us were seriously injured, dragged down by infection, and we are simply going to die. Xiao Yi, retreat. Qin Feng's broken wrist was stained with blood, and the red dots of the hologram flashed to lock the enemy's shadow. He crawled at the sentry post and sweat rolled down the dust. Boss, the intelligence is accurate. They are outflanked in 3 ways. The weak point is that the deputy is the vanguard alone, but we, the ammunition can save the Beast King, and the pigs and dogs will be used up first. Tang Yue welding the gun, sizzled to test fire, the oily face was pale and the welding gun trembled, the crossbow tower is aimed, but the fuel is low, just fire 5 rounds. Human pig, steal our protein. The air is as solid as iron lead, the Beast King roars from a distance and a rolling heat wave comes 300 meters away, the poisonous mist, squeaks, corrodes the broken wall, the fortress trembles slightly to predict a double enemy attack, and the black tide of despair floods the hearts of the people again. The predator's rocket is like the death scythe, and the half-month wealth of supplies is instantly gone. The corner of Xiao Yi's mouth was slightly raised, cutting through the night like a cold blade, and the war flames in his eyes exploded like stars. He slowly grabbed the remains of the wolf's leg, tore it apart and hissed, and the fresh juice dripped out. His voice was as low as hell's call, panic. Humanity is the basest bait. Obey the order. At the door of the fake supplies pile, all the wolf meat came out, the bucket was tilted to pretend to be rich, and the fuel oil was sprinkled 50 meters away from the trap circle. Fire wall line. Qin Feng navigated the second hand, pressed back from the crossbow tower, and Yi Ji pretended to cry to lure the enemy. Gu Han and I attacked and detonated. Everyone's pupils shrank, and the pain in Gu Han's blood hole was forgotten. The axe blade, Kang, hit the ground and sparks flew. His blood-filled eyes were wide and his throat was trembling, and he shouted, boy, fake bait to kill. You're so fucking stupid. I'll follow you and kill the pig for appetizers. Yi Ji wiped the blood on her lips, holding the bucket with trembling hands, her eyes flashing with tears. pretending to cry. Xiao Yi, you are calculating humanity in the palm of your hand. I hear it, hold on to the infection. Qin Feng's hologram's fingers were flying, and the red line track was locked, the deputy's path is accurate. The intelligence turns into murderous intent, the boss is against the sky. Tang Yue picked up the welding gun oil and wiped his face with his hands, his pupils blazing, oil circle crossbow tower, sea of fire pigs and dogs. Leader, the art of trap is sublimated. The fortress pulsed and reborn, everyone moved like a shadow. Tang Yue dragged the oil barrel, gulu, and poured it into the hidden ditch. The door of the wolf meat pile was full of hot fragrance. Yi pushed the door and cried, "Help, water is coming." The cry was like a hook in the wind. The predator smelled the scent and was jealous, and his deputy Scar twisted and laughed wildly. Cry. Wolf meat bucket, brother. 20 shadows swarmed, their footsteps were muddy and they stepped on the oil ring nearly 50 meters away. The rocket launcher buzzed and locked the door to warm up and the red light was dazzling. Qin Feng whispered, "Enter the circle." Xiao Yi hooked his finger slightly, and the lead wire, pop, sparks flew, and the oil circle, boom. The sea of fire exploded 30 meters high, the heat wave scorched the air like a furnace, the flames cracked and swallowed 10 people, screams tore through the night sky. Ah! Fire! The pig is burning. The flesh was charred and black, the smell of oil exploded and choked the lungs, and the rocket launcher fell crookedly and detonated the severed limbs with a rain of blood. The remaining 10 people were in a mess, and the deputy screamed and fired at the wall of fire. Fuck! Trap! Gu Han sprang out like a ghost, seriously injured despite his bulging muscles. The axe blade whirlwind, whoosh, tore through the wind. The first cut, the deputy's head flew up, and the blood fountain was 3 meters high with a broken neck. Gu Han's face was filled with heat, and he roared at Zhenlin, "Pig head. Black Wolf is second." The axe rain fell, and the second man's chest was split open and his internal organs were slippery and fell to the ground with a snap. Xiao Yi's energy gun buzzed 3 times in a row, and the skull fragments were like rain mixed with a burning smell. Tang Yue's crossbow tower, swish, pierced the backs of the 4 people, and the arrow clusters of fire tails burned and exploded with snap. Qin Feng wiped the throats of 2 people with a dagger, and the blood arrow shot into the air and splashed onto Yi's fake crying face at the door. The last 3 survivors knelt down on their knees, their diapers filled with the smell of odor, and begged for mercy with trembling voices. "Boss, please spare your life. We were wrong, join." Gu Han put his axe on his neck, his bloody eyes widened and he gasped like an ox, "Join. I'll kill you." But Xiao Yi raised his hand to stop, and said in a cold voice, "Those with controllable human nature will stay. Tang Yue, check the equipment." The blood pool of the counterattack was vast, and the mountain of scorched corpses was filled with smoke. 3 rocket launchers, 2 boxes of ammunition, 100 compressed biscuits, and 50 liters of purified water were obtained. Everyone stared with wide eyes and breathed heavily. Gu Han shook the blood and laughed, and the wound capsule sprayed pungently into his nose. "Boy, what a miracle. 20 pigs turned into supplies, I beheaded like cutting vegetables, you detonated the magic timing." Qin Feng picked up the rocket launcher, broke his wrist and forgot the pain, rolled his throat and worshipped, "Boss, counterattack and 0 damage. The intelligence locks the enemy like a dog, Tang Yue's crossbow tower seals the road, an invincible team." Yi rushed out from the door with a bucket, green-spotted arms trembling but soft eyes, pretend to cry to lure the enemy. "Xiao Yi, you know that people's hearts are like palms, and the bond is deep, we are a family." Tang Yue dismantled the rocket launcher and welded it into the crossbow tower, with a smile on his face and sparks flying, officially joining. "It's been a long time ago. But this round, I will fight to the death to strengthen the project. The mine circle is coming." With her hands flying, she removed 20 predator mines and buried them around the fortress. Xiao Yi nodded and distributed the supplies coldly. 50 liters of new water will be put into the warehouse, a total of 449, and 100 biscuits will supplement the rations, 1,800. The ration card system is activated. Each person swipes 2 liters of water with a magnetic card, and has a daily limit of 3 rations. Yi Ji is in charge of illegal deductions. Everyone's hands trembled when they accepted the card, and Gu Han swiped the card to test the water. Wow! A cold mouthful entered his throat. He roared, "Control human nature, nerves. Boy, you build the order of the apocalypse." The 5-member team was made of iron, and the bonds were like steel welded together. Tang Yue whispered to the game, "Boss, the project is up to you, but the crossbow tower is hungry for fuel, and upgrading the mines requires oil, priority." Xiao Yi's eyes were like abyss, "Prioritize the Beast King. Qin Feng, explore the path." Qin Feng limped out of the sentry post, his hologram scanning the 300-meter sea of beasts with his night vision, his red eyes surging like stars. He crawled on the edge of the ruins, the smell of beast feces was smelling like mud, and the mud stuck to his soles. He knelt down and panted, his face turned pale, "Boss. Beast King's path lock, broken bridge 100 meters away. The passage is 20 meters wide. There are hundreds of vanguard wolves and bulls. The blue light of the Belly King is pulsing strongly. It is expected that they will rush to the base at dawn." Everyone gasped, and Gu Han's axe hit the ground with cracks widening. "Fuck. Here comes the strangulation net, I will open the way." Xiao Yi held the white knot in his fist, and his voice cutting the air, "Layout. Tang Yue acid pit, a broken bridge with residual acid barrels in the supermarket, and a hidden ditch of mixed fuel 2 meters deep. Qin Feng strangler net, scrap steel cables are welded to crossbow towers, and both ends of the broken bridge are tightened like a meat grinder. Gu Han tests the fire, and our palace is a thunder circle. Yi Ji, serum grinding." The night was like weaving a net. Tang Yue dragged the acid bucket, Gulu, into the ditch, the pungent acid mist, ZZ, and the rotten mud bubbled up. She roared, "The pit is formed. The beasts are melting into the corpse." Qin Feng climbed to the top of the bridge and the welding cable clicked, and the steel mesh flashed like spider silk. Gu Han carried the axe and tried to pull the buzz net to shrink. The broken steel bars were like pieces of paper. He stared and breathed heavily, "God net. Wolves and cows are twisting stuffing." At dawn, the beast-tide pioneers' red eyes roared with thunder. Hundreds of wolves and cows jumped on the bridge and, boom, the bridge trembled. The first wave of acid engulfed the pit. Subsequently, swarms of people swarmed the bridge and sprayed the bridge with minced bones and meat, and wolf heads and horns flew off. Blood rain mixed with sour stench rushed towards the fortress. The crossbow tower swooshed to finish the attack, and the bazooka bombed the leader's brains and blackened entrails. The beast-tide collapsed and retreated 50 meters. The pile of corpses on the bridge was broken and the blood was boiling, weakened by 30%. Yi Ji monitors the internal screen and sees that the green spots on her arms have faded. She takes wolf blood mixed with antibiotic capsules and boils it in a pot of gudu with bubbling green liquid that is pungent. She tries to inject it into her arm flesh to nourish the redness and swelling. She smiles weakly with wet eyes. The simple serum is ready. To stabilize the infection, 1 ml per person per day. Everyone took turns to inject the hissing pain. Gu Han's chest hole was half healed. He patted Yi Jian, growled at game, "Sister, miracle medicine." But the source of the virus, the green bottle, is a man-made disaster. Do you believe that the boss will kill the mother's nest? Yi Ji nodded softly, believe. Team members, rush. The fortress was upgraded, the mine circle buzzed with red light patrol, the monitor locked the beast and faded, the ration card was swiped, drip, and the water flow was steady, the wolf meat was roasted and the hot juice dripped to satisfy. But the screen flashed a red warning, and there were 30 barrels of fuel left. Tang Yue turned pale and stopped the welding gun. Emergency. The mine crossbow tower consumes 5 barrels a day, and the Beast King is approaching. It lasts 3 days. Qin Feng's hologram scanned from a distance, and the green signal pulsing like a heart 1,000 meters away from the wreckage area. His throat trembled and he knelt down. Boss. The brood signal is strong, the source of the virus flashes, Skyhaven core experiment, and the energy pulse absorbs the fortress wreckage to incubate. Big crisis, the fuel is there. The air froze everyone, and Gu Han's muscles relaxed. Boy, rush to the mother nest. The pigs and beasts are behind the enemy, man-made disaster in the abyss. Xiao Yi stood up and dusted his shirt, with the abyss of flames in his eyes, foreshadowing. Replenish protein, rest for an hour. Fuel the mother nest, reverse the situation. The heartbeat of the fortress accelerated, the distant green light faintly pulsed, foretelling the abyss of the end of the world. The team bond boiled, and murderous intent surged. The hot wolf meat juice sizzles, dripping onto the iron plate, and the aroma of roasting mixed with blood and the lingering stench of acid mist hits the nose and brain. The buzzing of fluorescent lights in the fortress makes everyone feel exhausted, the dee-dee of the ration card swipes, and the blop of the bucket of cold clean water pours down the throat like sweet rain. Gu Han tore off the wolf's legs with big mouthfuls, blood dripping down his chin and burning his chest. The sticky capsules of the wounds on his shoulders, legs, arms and chest were half healed, and the stinging aftertaste of the serum green liquid made his muscles swell like iron. He stared at Xiao Yi with his blood-filled eyes while breathing heavily. Boy, this is a series of tricks. Plundering pigs and denying them, beasts squeezing 30% of stuffing, fortress iron walls. But 30 barrels of fuel will last for 3 days. The blue light pulsates 300 meters in the belly of the Beast King. Tens of thousands of corpses are surging together. The pigs and dogs are biting together in the apocalypse. Is the protein enough for the 5 of us? I am thirsty with the battle axe. How can I be hungry before killing the king? The sound was like thunder, and the axe blade, king, hit the ground and sparks flew. Everyone's breath was stagnant, and dark clouds filled their hearts. The green spot on Yi Ji's arm was as light as an old injury. She stirred the pungent green mist with the pot of serum. Her hand trembled and she filled the syringe and distributed it. Her eyes were filled with soft light and tears as she stared at Xiao Yi. Team member, the serum is stable for infection, but the fuel is dry. The Beast King's roar shook the windows 300 meters away, and the corpses on the broken bridge steamed with blood. It's not cold yet, the beasts gathered together to gather information about the Qin Feng lock. Even if the fortress is welded to death, it can't stop the tide pressure. We have half of the medical capsule left, and there are many injuries that can't be saved. Xiao Yi, retreat from the nest. His voice trembled like a candle in the wind, he hugged his knees and curled up, and the lingering sound of pseudo-crying beside the bucket echoed in his mind with a wave of despair. Qin Feng's broken wrist capsule was covered in blood, and the hologram sea of red dots shone like beasts' shadows like starbursts. He crawled in front of the screen, sweat rolled down and mixed with oil, his throat rolled, and he knelt down to pant with a white face. Boss. The Beast King's army has been upgraded. The remnants of the wolf and the bull have combined into thousands of corpses. There are tens of thousands of corpses outside the broken bridge. The shadows flicker, the green mist rots the air like a sea of poison, the brood's 1,000-meter pulse absorbs the wreckage and hatches, and the fuel is burned there. The intelligence is fully activated, our ammunition saves the Beast King, the pigs and dogs will run out first. The flying trajectory of his fingers locked, and Tang Yue's welding gun sizzled to test the fire. His face was pale and trembling. The remains of the rocket launcher are being dismantled and the crossbow tower is welded, and the fuel barrel is rolling with a shrill sound. The mine circle is buzzing with infrared light 50 meters away, and the acid pit of the broken bridge is ready to be hoisted, but the oil is hungry and thirsty. It consumes 5 barrels a day and works in 3 days. The firepower of the crossbow tower is doubled and it melts into a sea of corpses. The project is sworn to death, the leader. The human pig has been slaughtered, but where is the beast pig? The air is solidified with lead, the distant beast roars like thunder, the fortress trembles slightly to warn of a double enemy attack, the fuel warning light flashes red, Didi, to warn people, the black tide of despair floods the hearts of the people, the material wealth is gone in an instant, and the end of the siege of the beast is near. The corner of Xiao Yi's mouth was cold and the blade cut into the night, and the abyss flames exploded into the stars in his eyes. He slowly grabbed the wolf's spine and cracked the sweet marrow juice dripping plate with a low voice. He called out in a low voice, panic. Weak meat in the last days, traps against the sky. Inventory, 449 liters of clean water stored in the warehouse for a stable month, 1,800 rations, ration cards to control humanity, 3 rocket bombs and 2 boxes of welding towers, 20 mines connected to the infrared network, 30 barrels of fuel. Priority Beast King, upgrade. Everyone's pupils shrank suddenly, Gu Han's wolf legs fell to the ground and juice splashed out. His bloody eyes widened, his throat trembled and he roared, "Boy, God's plate. Fuel Priority King, material iron order, I will follow Zitian." Yi Ji needle, pa, he clenched tightly, his green-spotted arms were filled with pain and his eyes burst into tears. In charge of the ration card, Xiao Yi, you establish order like a god, and the family will not be separated. Qin Feng's hologram fingers danced wildly, new trajectories and red threads weaved a web, and he knelt down and breathed heavily. Admiration, boss, upgrade the intelligence to lock the weak points of the beasts. The forward zombie wave tramples on the foundation of the high building, collapses and smashes it. Against the odds. Tang Yue picked up the fuel barrel and wiped his face with oil, and the welding gun flew. The project obeys the order. The fuel depot explodes the high building foundation, the crossbow towers are connected, the pinnacle of trap art. The fortress pulses reborn, everyone's shadows move. Tang Yue drags the barrel, Gulu, to collapse the hidden ditch outside the bridge and deepens. The acid mist sizzles, the rotten steel mixed with oil buzz to warm up. Qin Feng climbed up the remaining roof of the high-rise building and the welding cable clicked and bit the collapsed wire to connect the crossbow tower. She roared, "Kucheng!" Thousands of corpses stepped on the bloody mud. Gu Han carried the axe and tried to pull the winch, buzz, to shrink, and the steel bars of the high-rise building, buzz, crunch, was as loose as paper, and he laughed wildly with a rough breath. God ascends. I will fight the king's claws in hand-to-hand combat. Yi Ji boiled serum and added wolf marrow, gudu, green liquid with a rich flavor, and doubled the daily injection to stabilize the injury, and the screen monitor was fully turned on and the red alert turned green. Xiao Yi put the biscuit into the card with a pop, and the energy gun buzzed and recharged coldly. Recuperation is over. Position guard, Gu Han. Before breaking the bridge, Qin Feng flanked the fire, Tang Yue exploded, our palace was surrounded by thunder, Yi Ji rescued. The team was welded to death with iron and blood, the bonding steel flames were boiling, and the mother's nest veins of far green light were faintly foreshadowing the abyss. At dawn, the bloody sun dazzles the eyes. The piles of hot-blooded corpses on the broken bridge rush towards the fort with a sour smell. All beasts merge and explode, the remnants of wolves and cattle roar with thunder, corpse beasts dragging gray-skinned carrion, crack, onto the bridge. The sea of red eyes is like the reflection of the blood moon, the blue light pulse of the beast king's belly shakes the ground for 300 meters, and the giant wolf and bull ring with claws and claws roars and splits the sky. Thousands of vanguards swarmed the bridge and trembled. Boom, the acid pit swallowed up the first wave. Crash, the skin melted and squeaked, white smoke was mixed with blood and flesh, the intestines were slippery, and the miserable howl shook the sky and pierced the brain. After the winch was made, the bones and meat were crunched, and the bridge clips were sour and smelled like hell. The rockets from the crossbow tower were blasted through the brains, and the charred internal organs were sprayed with blood. But the tide is endless, the foundation of the high-rise building tramples on the kaka, pine, and Qin Feng's holographic lock roars, step on the warehouse. Xiao Yi's finger seduces the wire, pop, and sparks fly. Tang Yue's welding gun presses the button wildly, boom. The fuel tank's continuous sea of fire explodes 30 meters high, and the heat wave melts the air. The hair was scorched, the flames cracked and swallowed up thousands of corpses, the corpse skin exploded and the oil sizzled and the scorching smell choked the lungs, the broken bridge and high-rise buildings collapsed, boom, and huge rocks hit the front, thousands of heads crushed the plasma fountain 10 meters high, and the broken bones and flesh were like rain and fire flakes that burned to the ground. Everyone stared at the screen and paused for breath. Gu Han held the axe in his hand and roared at the castle, "Boy, the gods have collapsed. High-rise buildings are smashing corpses, pigs and dogs in the sea of fire." Tang Yue smiled with an oily face and sparks flew, the art of warehouse explosion. Fuel is exchanged for thousands of corpses, it is worth dying. The Beast King roared and the world split apart, blue light exploded from his abdomen, green mist and rotting wind rushed towards the fortress 50 meters away. Hundreds of giant wolves and bulls leapt into the sea of fire with their claws. The embers, boom, stepped on the pile of corpses and rushed forward. The cold light of the claw blades tore the steel mesh, crunch, and sparks flew. Gu Han ran like a ghost across the broken bridge, his muscles bulged after being seriously injured. He howled like a whirlwind with his axe and tore through the air. His first slash was and the giant wolf's head flew away. He broke his neck and the blood fountain burned his face. Boots, minions pounced on the body and claws scratched the arms, tear it apart, but the bloodlines were opened and he laughed wildly, "Come. I fight the king's claws in hand-to-hand combat, the divine blood is stable, the boss's layout is invincible." The axe rain fell on 10 heads in a row, the broken limbs flew and the blood rain filled the air, mixed with the sour fire smell and ran through the nose and brain. Qin Feng crawled on the flanks as a holographic guide, lit a wolf-fat torch and threw the corpse tied on the flanks. Flames rushed through the forest, and the burning hair exploded and howled miserably. He broke his wrist and forgot about the pain and roared, "Boss, 5,000 flanks. Intelligence fire control, accurate." Yi Ji was saved on the screen behind him, with a needle. Gu Han's arm hissed as the green liquid entered the flesh and the redness and swelling subsided. She coughed up blood and spattered her lips and eyes. "Hold on. Team members, the blood won't stop." Tang Yue's crossbow tower fired rockets, boom, to finish the minion's brains, and the infrared lock guard of the mind circle, boom, broke his leg and sprayed blood. The fortress trembled under the pressure of the tide, and the Beast King's minions tore through the cracks in the welded steel. Cracking, sparks rained down. Gu Han retreated 3 steps in blood and his arm bones cracked. He panted and roared, "Boy, the minions are hard. The king is close." The gun barrel was sticky and hot, and he cut the air with a cold voice, "Full open. Thunder circle." He hooked his fingers wildly, and 20 landmines exploded in a 50-meter circle with boom, 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 and his minions trampled on his severed limbs, spitting out fire waves and bloody flesh, and piled high with corpses. Gu Han saw the axe stabbed into the seam and sprayed 3 meters of blue liquid into Xiao Yi's robe, burning it. He roared and stared, "Weakness. Boy's magic lock, I stabbed the king." The Beast King's pained roar shattered his eardrums, green mist sprayed out rotten air, stung his lungs and coughed up blood. His claws swept Gu Han's chest, leaving a bloody hole, but he retreated from the attack. The team was bathed in blood, Gu Han's broken arm was exposed, Qin Feng's flanks were burnt and scorched, Tang Yue's tower was destroyed by rockets, and Yi Ji's serum was injected into the empty needle and broken. However, the traps were fully activated to wipe out 80,000 tides. The sea of corpses, sea of blood, broken bridges, burning embers were steaming into the sky, and the Beast King was seriously wounded in the belly. The blue dark claws dragged blood and retreated to the core of the ruins. Boom disappeared in the green mist. The fortress survived, the fluorescent lights were humming steadily, and everyone was sitting paralyzed in a pool of blood, a sea of scorched corpses filled with smoke and the smell of blood filled their nostrils. Gu Han laughed and gasped with blood bubbles in the hole in his chest, "Boy. Slaughter 80% of all beasts," and the king fled to the core. "I am worthy in hand-to-hand combat, and I am invincible in a series of divine games. He threw blood, held an axe, and his throat shook in admiration, and his eyes became wet with admiration. Yi Ji climbed to Gu Han's last serum and it was hissing in pain. She burst into tears and laughed as she hugged Qin Feng's broken wrist. Family work. Xiao Yi understands the plan to rescue, hug Qin. The red dot of Qin Feng's hologram was 80% gone, and he knelt down. Xiao Yi breathed heavily. Boss, kill against the sky. Burn the intelligence fire on the side, Team Iron. Tang Yue jumped from the tower. With a greasy face and a black smile, Yi Ji threw the welding gun to the ground and hugged Yi Ji. The firehouse collapses. What a miracle project. Supplies are peeled off and corpses are piled up, and fuel is replenished. Everyone hugged and roared with hot-blooded sticky smiles to shake the castle. After peeling off the corpses, the fuel increased by 90% from 100 barrels of wolf fat oil, the meat protein was fully harvested, the shells and rockets were replenished, and the medical animal blue liquid was purified and the serum was upgraded. Xiao Yi divided the supplies and said coldly, rebuild the defense line. Tang Yue welded the cracks to add thunder, Qin Feng explored the core, Gu Hanxiu fought hand-to-hand, and Yi Ji's serum doubled. Everyone responded with trembling eyes and trembling hands, follow the leader. The fortress was reborn with iron walls, supplies were abundant and stable, and the wolf meat was filled with juice to celebrate, and the bonds were like steel welding. However, Qin Feng's hologram flashed with a green signal and the core pulsed for kilometers. He crawled on the screen, his face turned pale, sweat broke out and his throat rolled, and he knelt down and trembled, boss. Interception of intelligence. The high-level conspiracy of the virus source fortress, the brood hatching new king pulse explosion, the energy debris sucked in all the beasts to regenerate, the core green bottle, Skyhaven experiment, man-made disaster in the abyss, beasts the king is about to flee and the queen is about to rush in. Everyone hugged each other stiffly, Gu Han's muscles dropped to the ground and his eyes were filled with blood. Yi Ji's bucket dropped to the ground and ice and water splashed. Tang Yue's welding gun stopped oiling and his hands shook. The air froze with a green light pulsing like a heartbeat. The fortress's police light flashed red and Didi warned people. A new crisis suddenly rose and the black tide flooded, and the abyss of murderous apocalypse opened. The green signal of Qin Feng's hologram beat like a beating heart, the red edge of the screen flickered with poisonous light and dazzled the eyes. The air in the fortress was frozen and the stench of blood filled the nostrils. Everyone hugged and stiffened like corpses. Gu Han's axe handle hit the ground with a pop and sparks splattered with blood. His eyes widened and his throat rolled low. Roaring, boy, plotting a man-made disaster. It's not enough for me to slaughter pigs and dogs. The high-level dogs of the fortress are fucked. The blood bubbles in the chest hole, Gudu, were hot and fishy as his muscles relaxed. His knees softened and he knelt beside the pool of blood. His broken arm bones were white and white, reflecting the fluorescent light and elongating the shadow of despair. Yi Ji's bucket fragments scattered on the ground with ice water mixed with blood on her ankles, and the coldness was biting. She hugged her knees, curled up her arms, and the green spots were faintly rekindled. Tears fell down her mixed blood silk threads and she trembled, team member, experimental green bottle. The serum is not stable, the new king of the brood sucks the debris, our medical capsule is empty, and the infected green mist turns into a beast when it is sucked in. The sound was like a candle flickering in the wind. In the blood ditch, her pale face was cracked with oil, and she gasped, the welding of the project cannot stop the man-made disaster, the intelligence of the marauder camp, the core is burning with green bottles, and the pigs and dogs of the apocalypse are coming to bite. The green light veins of the ruins in the distance are faintly expanding, the roar of the beast is low, boom, and the steel wall is shaking the eardrums. Xiao Yuan's eyes were cold, and he walked slowly to the edge of the blood pool. He grabbed the glass tube of the Beast King's blue fluid sample and clicked. The blue crystal pulse in the green mist reflected on his face like a will-o'-the-wisp. The tip of his nose was pungent and the sour stench rushed through his brain. He cut iron in a low voice, panic. Apocalyptic abyss, source locked. Analyze. His fingers hooked into the monitor interface and clicked together, and the hologram exploded like a sea of green and blue intertwined data. Virus bugs crawled on the screen, everyone stopped breathing and stared at the screen. Qin Feng knelt down with broken wrists in sweat and clicked the track lock with his fingers frantically. Boss, God brain. The blue liquid Skyhaven experiment mark, the virus leaked high-level fuck. In the picture, the remains of the green bottle shadow flash laboratory, the brood pulse absorbs energy to incubate the blue crystal mother body, and the data red alert flashes, the infection rate is 90% of the fortress's hidden dangers. Yi crawled closer to the needle, shook the blue liquid and injected it into the test tube. His green smoke came out, her eyes softened and tears rolled down her throat. She analyzed, prototype antidote. The blue crystal fragments neutralize the green mist, but the core crystal is 1,000 meters away from the mother nest. The synthesis requires plundering from the edge of the insect nest. We have half a box of medical capsules left. Gu Han's chest hole will relapse and he will die. His voice trembled and he hugged his knees in despair. But his arm bones cracked and he bent over in pain. Tang Yue's face turned pale and he tried the weak flames of the welding gun. The escape cabin was modified. The armored vehicle made a mobile attack, but the predator camp got wind of it, and the intelligence of the enemy was leaked, and the entire army was wiped out. The air was frozen, the green veins were beating like beasts, the crowd's shadows were elongated, and the fluorescent buzz was suppressing the black tide in the heart. The corpses were piled outside the iron wall of the fortress. The corner of Xiao Yi's mouth was sharp and the flames exploded, reversal of the situation. Qin Feng sneaked into the raider camp and recruited allies to lock the ghosts. Tang Yue transformed the escape cabin into an iron beast and repaired the rocket wheels and mines. Yi boiled the prototype of the antidote, and our palace analyzed the weakness of the blue crystal. The team broke into the nest, slaughtered the insects and looted the fragments. Everyone's eyes were wide open. The hole suddenly shrunk, and Qin Feng's hologram knelt down with his arms crossed, breathing heavily and shouting, "Boss, a divine plan. The intelligence is hidden in the camp, I cut off my wrist and become invisible." He crawled beside the blood pool, grabbed the invisibility capsule and swallowed it with a pop. His skin was burnt and the light green mist wrapped him like a ghost and disappeared through the cracks in the door. Whoosh, disappeared into the ruins night. Tang Yue picked up the welding gun oil and wiped her face with her hands, her eyes burning, and yelled, "The project obeys the order." The escape cabin dismantles the rocket tracks and welds thick steel to kill insects on the move. After she dragged the Golu cabin shell to the supermarket shelf, the welding gun sizzled, sparks exploded and the steel plate bent and squeaked. The rocket launcher's remaining will shaft hummed to test the speed, and the fuel injection ditch squeaked, and the smell of oil hit her nostrils. Yi climbed into the test tube rack to boil the blue liquid and added the green and blue wolf marrow, Golu, to the pungent mist. She coughed up blood and injected the prototype needle, his. The green spots on her test arm receded and her eyes filled with soft tears. The family is stable. The antidote is in prototype, but the core crystal. Xiao Yi plans to save. Gu Han carried the axe. The blood blisters in the chest hole at the test station stopped but he bent over in pain. His bloody eyes widened and his throat trembled. Boy, God ascended. I escort the team in hand-to-hand combat, and the chest hole is worth it. The pulse of the fortress restarted, and the shadows moved and suppressed the slight flame, but the green pulse expanded thousands of meters away and roared through the wall as if death was approaching. At night, the blood moon hangs over the ruins, the ghost of Qin Feng stalks the pile of corpses, and the hot-blooded and slippery stomping pop is heard, and the heart beats down the throat. The pop of the looter's camp torch reflects the dirty faces of the pigs' greedy eyes. The wolf meat in the camp is roasted, sizzling, and the oil drips and burns, and the fragrant corpses are mixed. Smelly, He crawled behind the oil barrel and holographic micro-locked information, the inner ghost, the camp leader go when fortress slaughtered the king, and 90 barrels of fuel were greedy. The pigs roared and laughed and divided the stolen rockets, that kid's trick. I'm surrounded by hundreds of people and skinned. Qin Feng broke his wrist in pain and fled invisible to the tent. Whoosh, the camp leader was stabbed in the throat with a Guji knife, blood sprayed out and the tent was hot and hot. He growled and whispered to the surviving pigs, Fortress of the Alliance, the massacre of the nest will be full of fuel, otherwise the inner ghost will be exposed and slaughter them all. The pig's eyes widened and he knelt down with trembling breaths, God's intelligence. I'm following you, 100 pigs are iron. Qin Feng's ghost retreated from the camp and the flames shone, and the intelligence card dropped to the fortress. The camp alliance was just formed, but the ghost's whispers after the flash tent were not heard. The gray mist at dawn stung the air and stung the lungs. The modified iron beast roared out of the fort in the escape cabin. Boom, the tracks crushed corpses and bones. Kick, the blood and mud spray wheels. The thick steel-welded rocket tower turned buzz. Tang Yue's oily face laughed wildly in the cockpit, mobile sacred vehicle. Crossbow will mine repair welding, breaking into the insect nest is invincible. The team of Ironbloods got on the bus, Guhan carried the axe in the chest hole and wrapped the blood-eye flames, Yi Ji held the prototype needle and wrapped the green mist body protection, Qin Feng's holographic guide was 500 meters away from the edge of the hive, and Xiao Yi's energy gun was coldly held in front of the driver's seat. The steaming and sour stench of corpses on the ruins road hit the car window with raindrops, the iron beast crushed the greasy intestines under the wheels, and the pulsating insect shadows squirmed at the entrance of the green mist hole in the distance, like thousands of ants gnawing at the bones, and the breath of the breath was stagnant and pressed against the black clouds. Raid begins. Qin Feng's holographic lock bug danced with his fingers wildly, boss, the Vanguard 1000 bugs. The weak crystal belly. Tang Yue pressed the rocket wildly and swooshed. Green mist exploded at the entrance of the hole, and the plasma fountain exploded with fishy heat and burned the roof of the car. Guhan jumped over the roof of the car and slashed the first wave of heads with his axe in a whirlwind. Pft! The crystal belly blue fragments splashed on the ground. He yelled, come on. I'll fight the insect dog hand to hand, and the magic car will hit you. The axe rained down on 10 heads, and the broken claw sprayed acid. The prototype of the antidote is crystal tonic. Xiao Yi's gun buzzed with 5 shots of blue light, blasting insects' eyes and brains sticking to the gun barrel. He said coldly, trap. Acid pit in the roadbed. Tang Yue swung the oil in the ditch to dig a tunnel. Everyone stared at the screen and breathed wildly. Qin Feng knelt down on the bilge and peeled off crystals and shouted, boss, Shen 2. 50 pieces of fragments, antidote and enough supplies to explode. Tang Yue wiped blood with his oily hands and smiled, the engineering trap is at its peak, insect mud is replenishing the fuel. But in the green mist, the signal of the mole flashed, and the plunderer betrayed the pig with 100 heads. The torch on the flank flashed, Papa, and the camp leader's dog roared like thunder, the inner ghost is out. The god-peeling boy snatches all the fuel. The traitor's shadow showed Xiao Yi, a pig in the original camp, kneeling down and pretending to be selling information. The arrows rained down, and the steel dented the car, and the sparks rained down. After the insect wave merged, tens of thousands of them chewed the steel, crunching, the cracks opened. Guhan blocked the arrow with his axe and the hole in his chest reopened, spurting out blood and yelling at the convoy, get out, kid. I'll fight the pig worm after I'm cut off. He jumped on the ground and tore the rebel leader with his axe. His brain spattered with hot blood, and his claws pounced on him. His arm bone was cracked again, and it bent in pain. Laughing madly, he killed 20 heads, and the blood rained all over his body and his intestines were wet with a pop. The rebellious pig's eyes widened and he trembled, taking 3 steps back, monster. The axe is invincible. But the insect arrows hit Gu Han's leg and hit an arrow. The blood hole opened in the knee, and the chest was weak. Blood blisters exploded and black blood rolled down his throat. The escort is on duty. Get out. Xiao Yuan's eyes exploded with flames, the iron beast reversed the car and, boom, the crushing insect retreated, the energy gun hull swept the blue light and exploded the brains of the rebel group. Guji, fishy mist. Yi climbed up the hatch pulling Gu Han's arm, the prototype needle injected green and blue into the flesh and the redness and swelling subsided. She burst into tears and shouted, "Brother Gu. It's a team job." Qin Feng's holographic lock locked the way out, and Tang Yue spun around wildly, choking on the oil smoke and ran away quickly. The air is as solid as lead, the beast king roars and a scalding heat wave rushes in, the poisonous mist corrodes the steel beams and emits white smoke, and the ground trembles slightly, foretelling the doomsday. Everyone's eyes were empty, Gu Han's muscles relaxed and his axe fell to the ground, Yi sobbed and held his head, Qin Feng sat paralyzed in a pool of blood, Tang Yue punched the wall and cracked his knuckles. Despair is drowning like a black tide, the fortress is shaking like a drunkard, and material losses are like a heart-wrenching knife. A month of prosperity has shrunk by half a month, and the ghost of hunger and thirst has opened its mouth. The iron beast's tracks, boom, crushed the bones, the grey mist swallowed the shadows and the bottom of the blood mud spray will, pop, rain down on the carrion, the smelly rotten mist mixed with blood in the cabin stung the lungs, Gu Han dragged the axe down the bilged leg and the bloody hole, Gudu, emitted black bubbles and hot iron plates, his blood-soaked eyes rolled and his throat rolled and he gasped, "Boy. I'm on duty to protect the team, the evil pigs and dogs can't bite them all, the team is in panic." The voice as if a broken bellows was shaken out, everyone's breath was stagnant and pupils shrank, staring at the cracked hole in his chest. The green edges were faintly rekindled. Yi climbed closer to the needle bag and shook her hands to inject the last prototype needle. The blue crystal penetrated into the flesh and became red, swollen and hot. Her eyes were soft and trembling with tears mixed with blood, and she yelled, "Brother Gu, hold on. The family is still together, the prototype of the antidote will stabilize your green spots, but the medical capsule is half empty. The pulse of the brood is close, and the infection mist transforms into a beast once it is inhaled." Tang Yue turned the wheel wildly in her hand and choked on the fumes. The red alarm signal on the screen flashed like a poisonous needle and pierced her eyes. Her pale face was cracked and oily, and she shouted, "The iron beast of the project has cracks and arrow marks, and the traitorous pig's torch burned the road and roasted its tail in the heat. Boss, there is no way to retreat from the fortress, and the 90 barrels of fuel have been burned out." Qin Feng's broken wrists and kneeling holograms on the bilge were frantically clicking on the green line to retreat. He sweated and burst out of the invisible glue, and wrapped himself in the mist. He breathed heavily, "Boss, God brain. The leader of the ghost camp is selling information to the Puppet Alliance. Hundreds of pigs are outflanking the flanks and attacking with a hail of arrows and insects. The fortress gate is 1,000 meters away, after it is cut off." The air was filled with lead and the black tide pressed down. The distant rebel yelled, "Kill the god of death, peel off the fuel." The flames reflected the heat wave at the rear of the car, and the stench was swirling. The hearts of the people were sinking into despair, like an iron beast trapped in corpse mud, unable to move. Xiao Yuan's eyes were cold, and the heat pipe of the energy gun in the driver's seat was buzzing, and the heat pipe was sticky to his brain. A psychological game flashed in his mind, the inner ghost is like a cancer, one kill will wake up 100, the team will be seriously injured and distracted, recruitment must be frightened with iron and blood, the antidote is 50 blue crystals, but it needs to stabilize people's hearts and expand the power. The explosion of the brood hatching pool will reduce the resources, but the supergiant beast king's veins are faintly awakening, is it worth sacrificing Gu Han? The corner of his mouth raised and he cut the iron in a low voice, "Reverse." The iron beast backed into the pit, Qin Feng locked the coordinates of the ghost, Tang Yue welded and sealed the cracks with rocket equipment, Yi Xiao capsule was fully focused on Gu Han, our palace eliminated the traitor. Finger taps on the screen frantically, the blue crystal data exploded, psychological balance, kill the ghost first to establish power, and use the rebellion to recruit the surviving pigs and dogs to show their loyalty. The pupils of the crowd shrank suddenly, Qin Feng broke his wrist and trembled, locked the holographic red dot on his finger and shouted, "Boss, divine calculation." The ghost inside pretends to be a pig Tibetan iron beast in the bilge, and the camp owner's cronies sell the fort's information. He crawled on the bottom of the bilge and disappeared through the mist, whoosh, the sword flashed, Guji, and the ghost's throat spurted blood and splashed hot ankles, the pseudo-effect pig's eyes widened, its throat growled, and it died under the pulley. Tang Yue's welding gun sizzled and sparks sealed the cracks. The steel plate bite, squeaked, his oily face and eyes were burning, and he laughed wildly. The project obeys the order. The rocket tower is on standby, and the rebel pig comes to peel it. Yi Ji hugged Gu Han's injection capsule and hissed the blue crystal into the chest hole. The redness and swelling turned green, and she shouted with tears in her eyes, "Steady. Brother Gu has a strong pulse, the team is strong." Gu Han's blood-stained eyes blazed as he held the axe at the Baijia test station and bent over in pain, but he laughed wildly, "Boy, it's a miracle. I'm so injured that I still fight hand to hand, it's so cool." The iron beast reversed and boomed the wheel into a pit of corpses. The rebel pigs jumped out of the sea and fired arrows into the air with a whoosh and shot into the fog. Xiao Yi's gun buzzed and blasted the blue light hole. The rebel leader's brain was splashed with fishy fog. The rebel group's eyes widened and they trembled and took 5 steps back, monster gunner. The inner ghost is dead, no more fuel. The psychological game turned, shock successful, recruitment begins. The iron beast blasted out of the pit and crushed the road to retreat from the fortress, and the rebel wave dispersed and followed, seeing the blood, they bowed their heads. The iron gate of the fortress crunched open, and the iron beast rushed into the blood pool square. Boom! The hot steaming acid mist of the morgue hit the nostrils. The survivors' 20 pig eyes with dirty faces popped out from the shadows of the shelves. They breathed and stared at the 90 barrels of fuel. The sacred car is back. The fuel month is over, strip the body to replenish the warehouse. But seeing Gu Han dragging the axe and soaking in blood with his leg whole and chest cracked, the pigs laughed in their throats. The king of hand-to-hand combat has fallen. The team has dispersed, the traitor has wiped out the whole army, I will grab the fuel. The ugliness of human nature explodes, the pig's hand grabs the wolf meat protein, and the air is filled with frozen blood and the smell of wolf smoke. Xiao Yi jumped into the car and scanned the crowd with his eyes, his energy gun, buzz, aimed at the mocking pig head, psychological game, kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, discipline is ironclad, expand the power of 20 people and form an alliance. A cold voice was raised, under the corpse of the inner ghost, the traitorous pigs are following. Kneel down and be loyal, divide the labor, hunt and patrol the project, fuel, water, purify and ration the warehouse. Anyone who violates will be skinned. The gun buzzed with a blue light and scratched his head and ears, and bloodshot eyes burst out. His pig eyes were rounded, his knees were soft, he knelt down in the pool of blood and his nose was trembling. God leader. I am loyal to you, hunting beasts to replenish the warehouse. All the pigs shivered and knelt down, 20 of them roared, iron-blooded alliance. Xiao Yi's brain, slaughter the mother's nest at full moon. Gu Han's axe hit the ground, sparks splattered with blood, and his eyes roared, boy, God is shocked. I'm seriously injured, but the pigs and dogs knelt down. Yi Ji held the needle, covered her eyes with soft tears, and divided the original needle into the pig's arm with hiss, their eyes turned green and they retreated with half-throated admiration, magic medicine. The family is stable, and the medical care is under orders. Tang Yue dragged the supply box with oil and took inventory and yelled, engineering tray. 449 liters of purified water, 1,800 bars of compressed rations, 90 barrels of insect mud, rocket launcher ammunition, iron-embedded animal medical capsules, half a box of blue crystals, 50 pieces of wolf meat, and mine welding shoes. Take care of the whole warehouse. Qin Feng's hologram expanded and projected the core map of the ruins with green veins for thousands of meters. He broke his wrist and knelt down and yelled, "Information map. The incubation pool outside the nest is weak. 500 meters away from the edge of the nest, test the source of the explosion." The pigs breathed wildly and glared at the map. The shadows stretched and glowed, and the air in the fortress was slightly flaming and depressing. Healing opens. Yiji's test tube rack boiled blue crystal wolf marrow, gulu, a mixture of green and blue, and pungent mist filled the entire fort. She poured fragments of the bucket into a large-scale antidote bucket, hiss. 50 crystals dissolved into the original sea, her eyes were soft and tough and she shouted, "Family production." 20 injections for allies, the green mist absorbs and stabilizes the green spots and disappears. Kneeling pig's arm after the injection, the redness and spots faded away, and the mixed blood worshipped him, miraculous doctor. The team members are full month, patrolling and hunting to death. Gu Han lay down by the blood pool with the prototype capsule wrapped around the chest and leg holes to stop the blood blisters. He bent over in pain and stared at Yi Ji with tears in his eyes and his throat trembled. "Sister, miracle medicine. I am reborn as a hand-to-hand combat king, and I owe you a favor." Tang Yue designed a giant trap array hologram after dragging the steel shelf with the welding gun, and smiled wildly. The pinnacle of engineering. The acid pits on the ruins road are connected with rockets to induce the explosion, the hatching pool outside the brood is exploded, and the crawler iron beasts are mobile for last-ditch attacks. In the picture, the trap net at the entrance of the green veins is like a spider weaving, and the pigs stare at the picture, their pupils shrink, and they breathe heavily, God array. The pig and dog engineering team obeys the order, welding to death and peeling the steel. Qin Feng's ghost shadow scurries outside the fort, and the core map of the holographic painting has dense pulse lines. Insect net, he broke his wrist and roared back, "Boss, map lock." Thousands of insects protect the hatching pool, the supergiant beast king awakens from the abyss sleep pulse, test the 5 teams to explode the source and destroy the enemy. Xiao Yuan's eyes locked on the map, the psychological game is deep, the alliance is a young adult, and the test sacrifices the value of 2 pigs, the explosion of the pool is reversed, but the beast king's air defense crisis is summoned, and the backhand iron beast crossbow tower is deployed. The corner of his mouth raised, "Move." I am Gu Han, Tang Yue, Qin Feng and Yi Jihu in the team, the 2 pigs are hunting and patrolling to replenish the warehouse, and the 5 trials are exploding the hatching pool, and the alliance is iron-blooded. At dawn, the blood moon fell and the grey mist stung the lungs. A team of iron beasts blasted out of the fort. Boom! The track crushed corpses. Blood and mud spurted out. The rocket tower buzzed and turned to prepare crossbows. The pigs knelt down and shouted with eyes wide open, "The God team slaughters the source." The fuel bunker holds on for dear life. The pulse of the green mist cave 500 meters away from the ruins was, boom, as close as the heartbeat. Thousands of hatching worms in the hatching pond, with grey shells and seas of green eyes, squeaked, and clawed at the air with sour stench and hit the car windows. Qin Feng's holographic lock's weak point roared, "Boss, Qi Jing's belly explodes." Tang Yue pressed the rocket wildly, whoosh, the green mist exploded, the plasma fountain was hot and scalding, the insects swarmed and bit the steel, crack, sparks, Gu Han jumped to the top of the axe the whirlwind, who decapitated the head and flew, puff. The crystal belly blue fragments rained, ding ding. His leg hole was bent in pain and bathed in blood. He laughed wildly, "Come. I am seriously injured and slaughter 1,000 people, a team member. The broken claws are rotten and the arms are hot and painful." Yi Ji the prototype injected in the back cabin roared steadily, "Hold on. The antidote is protected by the sea." Xiao Yi's gun buzzed with blue light and the sticky tubes of the brains of the blasting insects were fishy. He said in a cold voice, "The trap array is open." Tang Yue flicked the wheel and dug the acid pit in advance. Crack! The insect stepped on the shell and melted the white smoke. The screams were deafening, the mine circle exploded and the limbs were shattered into blood mist. The rockets repaired the nest wall and collapsed the hatching pool. The blue crystal mother exploded and exploded. Green liquid sprayed into the sky like a volcano. Thousands of insects were cut into half and the tide receded and they were squeaking. Qin Feng peeled off the crystal and roared, "God's explosion." Hundreds of fragments, the antidote is enough to weaken the enemy. The breaths in the cabins were furious, and the eyes were burning. Gu Han stabbed his axe on the ground and glared at Xiao Yi with bloody eyes and his throat trembled. "Boy, God is rebellious. I have a hand-to-hand combat value, the alliance explodes." But the veins of the green mist abyss exploded with a boom, and the earth cracked, shaking the iron beasts. The giant beast king revived and appeared at the core of the kilometer away. His scaly black forest blue crystal eyes opened like will-o'-the-wisps and stared into the sky. He roared, "Golu," and summoned a flock of mutated birds in the air, quack. The pigs roared in panic in the fortress square, the Bird King air attack. The air defense is in emergency, the crossbow tower is ready for fuel. The iron beast's retreating bird shadow swooped down and, swoosh, claws tore the steel dents, sparks rained down, Gu Han's axe blocked the wing and sprayed blood and roared, "Boy, the Beast King is awake." The team's air defense is reversed. Yi shook her needle bag and shouted with tears on all arms. The antidote is stable, the family will not be separated. Tang Yue welded the cracks with his oily hands and laughed wildly, the engineering crossbow tower turns. Qin Feng's holographic lock bird weakly roared, the wing root crystal explodes. Xiao Yuan's eyes burst into flames and the psychological game turned, the explosion of the pool, the micro-reverse king summoner crisis, the alliance trial, the backhand mine array aerial induction, and the killing opened a new game. The energy gun buzzed and the first bird's wing, poof, the blue crystal shattered into pieces, the birds fell tragically to the road, and the black clouds outside the iron wall of the fortress reflected the chaos of the torches, and the crisis was layered but the flames slightly burned the abyss. The iron beast will is stuck in the mud of corpses, squeaking, idling, blood splashing hot and scalding on the tracks, black clouds of birds, squeaking, swooping in, sharp claws and steel beaks tearing steel dents, stabbing, sparks raining in the eyes, the red police on the screen flashing wing shadows covering the blood moon, grey fog, putrid smell, hitting the cabin window, slapping, like rotting rain hitting flesh. The fortress is wide, the pigs roared in panic, and the torches shook. And reflected the iron wall. The blood pool boiled, the king of birds is attacking. The fuel has burned out and the crossbow tower cannot turn, and the alliance is scattered and destroyed. The pigs' eyes widened, their noses filled with greed, and their eyes flashed at the 90 barrels of fuel in the public warehouse. Their hearts were filled with ugliness, God's leader's team was trapped in a sea of birds, and they stripped the warehouse to escape. Humanity is shattered, hands grasping the wolf meat protein and reaching out, lead freezing acid mist in the air stings the lungs and presses the abyss of despair. Gu Han was bathed in blood in the top cabin of his axe. His legs were weak and his knees were aching. He bent over and roared, his throat shaking, "Boy, I am seriously injured and on duty to protect the team." Bird claws tear the heart and lungs apart. Yi shook her needle bag and held the prototype capsule in the back cabin with tears mixed with blood and her eyes trembled softly, "Brother Gu, hold on. The antidote is see steady green mist, medical treatment." The half-empty box was pecked by birds and turned into beasts. Tang Yue's hand welding cracks, zzz, sparks choked the screen and the birds roared weakly, "The steel is cracked in the project, the rockets and ammunition are not enough to stop the black clouds, there is no way to retreat, the fuel bugs are burning dry." Qin Feng's hologram of broken wrists clicked on the green line to break the bird. The pulse of the lair was dense. He was sweating and wrapped in invisible gel mist. He was breathing heavily, "Boss, God brain." The Bird King's wing root crystal summons a wave of corpses to attack. The corpse pit is thousands of meters away from the fortress gate. After a break, the pigs and dogs rebelled. The beast king of the far abyss roared, "Golu!" The earth cracked, shaking the iron beast, and the black tied the zombie beast, boom boom, with its gray shell and green eyes sprayed blood and mud at the bottom of the wheel. The rebellious pig followed and shouted, "The godly boy is down with the gun. I peel the corpse to replenish the warehouse and swallow the fuel for myself." The hearts of the people are sinking and the cracks in the team are faint. The pigs are weak at the knees, greedy and desperate, like iron beasts unable to move. Xiao Yi's eyes exploded with cold flames. The energy gun in the driver's seat buzzed and the heat pipe was sticky. His brain was sticky, and a psychological game flashed in his mind. The bird corpses teamed up to attack the Alliance trio. The pigs and dogs were humanely ugly and killed the chickens to scare the monkeys. The crossbow tower fire network rocket induced an aerial battle with mines. Gu Han jumped high and beheaded the king to expose his weakness. The antidote mist disintegrated the infection and reversed it. The nest was destroyed and the beast king's weak veins were blown up to reveal the core conspiracy. The edge of his mouth raised and he cut the iron in a low voice, "Reverse." The iron beast locked the fort and charged through the iron gate. Tang Yue changed the rocket to block the bird net. Gu Hanyue cut off the bird king's wing root from the high tower in the square. Qin Feng ghost burned the nest. Yi Ji spray was fully sprayed to eliminate the infection. I activated the crossbow tower fire net the palace sweep. The pigs and dogs are guarding the barn, and they are skinned. Finger points on the blue crystal screen blasted the holographic projection of the iron beast's trajectory into green flames. The psychological balance was, sacrifice 2 pigs to establish power, and the bird corpse was 90% demoralized and penetrated into the crystal nest. The pupils of the crowd suddenly shrank, the pigs knelt down in the blood pool, their noses were stagnant, and they stared round and roared, "Iron-blooded leader of God! I will guard the warehouse, hunt and patrol to death, and the fuel, purification, water, and ration treasury will not move." Gu Han's blood-stained eyes exploded with flames, and he held the white knot of his axe and tried to jump to the roof of the cabin and bent in pain. But the waste was laughing wildly, "Boy, what a miracle! I'm seriously injured, fighting with Wang Yu Tower to kill birds, team members." The iron beast reversed the car and, boom, sprayed the corpse pit. Blood spring, heat wave, rancidity, rushed towards the fort gate, crunch, bit open the square and boiled the blood pool. The torches in the square illuminated the crowds of pigs, welding crossbow towers, sizzling, steel-biting sparks, and the flock of birds, swooshing, claws tearing apart the iron beast's roof pits, spraying blood and flesh into pieces. Gu Han's arms were hot and painful. He whirled with the axe, whooshed and cut off his wings. Beep! The pungent fog of the green-blue sea exploded outside the cabin and, hissed, the iron-wrapped beast steel, and the infected bird had green spots and redness and retreated half of the body. Tang Yu's greasy-faced cracked smile as she welded the rocket launcher, Z, into hundreds of blue crystal fragments and buzzed around the inducing net. She spun the iron beast sideways and slid blood and mud. Crash, and the rocket, swish-swish-bang, exploded into black clouds, winged seas, green mist, and a plasma fountain. It was hot, and bird corpses rained down on the square. Pop-paw. The rotten smell filled the nostrils and roared, the pinnacle of engineering. The rocket block opens, and the bird king's wing root lock explodes. Qin Feng, a ghost with a severed wrist, scurried through the invisible fog. Whoosh! The loon's nest was holographically locked with green veins. His sword flashed and burned the insect mud fuel barrel. Boom! A sea of fire swallowed the nest wall and collapsed the blue crystal mother explosion. Xiao Yi's energy gun in the driver's seat buzzed and fired a series of blue light holes into the bird's brain. Pfft! The brain was sticky and smelly. He touched the main control screen of the fortress to activate the crossbow tower fire network. Buzzing. Thousands of arrows fired in unison. The steel feathers, swish, penetrated the black clouds. Wings cut off the rain. The blood mist covered the blood moon, the iron net in the square exploded, bird corpses fell from the mountain, the heat steamed, and the acid mist stung the lungs. His cold voice turned to the psychological game. The fire net suppressed 90%, Gu Han killed the king and exposed his belly crystal, and the alliance's bloody morale exploded to reveal the conspiracy. The pigs glared at the crossbow tower, their pupils shrunk, their noses rolled, their throats rolling, and they knelt down in worship and roared, "The divine brain is activated. The crossbow fire network slaughters the sky, and the fuel warehouse is worth my life to skin the traitorous pigs." Gu Han bent his legs in pain, took a blood bath, leaped high to the top of the tower, and the axe whirled in the wind. Bent over in pain, his eyes were wet with blood and he roared, his throat trembling, "Boy, God. I'm so injured that I jumped out of the tower to kill the king, my wings exploded and my abdominal veins were exposed." The bird king's will-o'-the-wisp blue crystal eyes widened and he roared, "Golu." Tang Yue's rocket last-ditch attack, whoosh, and the green liquid from the abdominal crystal cracks was scorching hot. Her oily hands trembled with a smile, and her eyes burned, "The god of engineering has changed." The beast king weakly locks his belly, and the trap formation opens an acid pit to dissolve the corpse. The mine circle exploded continuously, boom, the corpse was shattered, and the white smoke shook the sky. Qin Feng's hologram projected the green line of the abdominal veins and roared weakly. Intelligence divine lock. The core is 1,000 meters deep, and the crystal mother nest is close. Yi sprayed the square, hissing, and wrapped the pig corpses in the sea. The infection faded, the spots were red and swollen, their arms turned green and their tears became wet, and the mixed bloods knelt and shouted, the divine mist collapsed. 90% of the family alliance collapsed in blood, and the Slaughter King was divided into months and months. The battle flames in the open space burned with blood, the grey mist cracked, 90% of the bird corpses fell into the corpse mountain, the putrid steaming heat wave roasted the lungs, the tide of corpses were chopped into half, stepped on the traps, and the acid pits melted their shells. A weak abdomen reveals morale. Gu Han kneels in a blood bath with an axe inserted into his wings and stares at Xiao Yi in admiration, "Boy, the climax of the divine game. I deserve to be reborn in a hand-to-hand fight, and the team is full of menstruation." Yi holds the needle and packs the prototype of the CI soft and firm tears and shouts, "The medical treatment is stable. The antidote mist is enough. The green spots are all gone, and the family is not separated." Tang Yue dragged the remaining rocket barrels to take inventory and laughed wildly, "Engineering disc. 80 barrels of ammunition embedded in the rocket tower, crossbow net, heat pipe, red fuel, worm mud, mine circle are all open, the trap spider web is at its peak." Qin Feng's broken wrist holographic core expansion core picture weakly roared with green pulse, "Divine picture. The crystals in the belly are drawn deep, and the source of the virus is locked in the video of the mother nest." 20 pigs with dirty faces and bloody mud kneeled in front of the public barn with greedy eyes turned and long breathing, fluorescent buzzing, "The leader of God is shocked. I will fight to the death in the hunting patrol project, skin the wolf meat, purify the water and compress the rations of the public warehouse." The flames of victory ignited slightly, the iron beast blasted the road with boom, the track crushed the corpse pit, and the blood sludge spray team penetrated 1,000 meters into the core ruins. The grey fog and rot stung the lungs and the green pulse, boom, was as close as the heartbeat shaking the ground. Qin Feng's Ghost Shadow Pioneer holographic projection bit the broken experimental cabin door with a squeak, and the screen was buzzing with residual electricity. The high-level video exploded, the face of the Skyhaven noble was twisted and sneered, "Virus blue crystal experiment controls human beings, mutant beasts enslave the survivors, the source of the brood hatches the immortal legion, and the traitor sells information to stabilize the situation." The crowd shrank, their noses stagnated, and the pigs' throats rolled and they knelt down in fear, the conspiracy of the high-level pigs and dogs. The gods revealed the source, "I am loyal to the two aristocrat." Xiao Yuan's eyes are cold and the flame is locked. The video has a deep psychological game. The conspiracy proves that the alliance is iron. The crystal brood has recently established a new order, but the ultimate guardian beast Vayne has awakened and sacrificed. Gu Han smashed his axe against the bulkhead and roared with blood-eyed flames, "Boy, God revealed. I will skin the nobles in hand-to-hand combat." Yi Ji's eyes were soft with tears and her arms roared, "The family is safe. The antidote is sea protection and it goes deep." Tang Yue welded the hatch door with oil and his hands trembled, engineering preparation. Mines and rockets are embedded in the mother's nest. But the green mist of the abyss exploded, boom, and the ground cracked, shaking the cabin, and the awakening shadow of the ultimate guardian beast of the brood appeared at the core. The giant body with thousands of meters of scales and black forest belly crystals pulsed like thunder. The pig's eyes widened and their knees weakened and they roared in fear. The ultimate beast king protects the crystal. Go deep into the trap, and the alliance will scatter fuel. Humanity's ugliness glares greedily at the blue crystal mother body, which is close at hand with thousands of fragments. The air is filled with lead and the black tide is full of dangers, and the team's heart is in flames and is under the weight of despair. Xiao Yi's energy gun buzzed, the heat pipe was sticky, and the corner of his mouth was sticky. The psychological game turned, the final game began. The iron beast behind the trap array maneuvered, and killed Jiandi against the sky. The tracks of the iron beast, crunch, crushing the green veins, breaking bones, blood and mud splashing hot and scalding the bulkhead. The grey fog is as rotten as lead-pressed lungs, the abyss vibrates, boom, the core of the nest is a kilometer long, the veins of the steel shell are pulsing and flashing with green light. The giant body of the ultimate guardian beast, the scaly black forest, Golu, roars. The thunderous pulse of the belly crystal reflects on the screen, and the red alert is dazzling. The grey shell of the insect see and the green eyes are full of waves. 20 pigs with dirty faces and blood-soaked noses stared wide-eyed and roared with fear, God leader. The beast king's 1,000-meter scale armor pulses like a heart, and the tracks of the iron-eating beast of the sea of insects are broken. The mother body of the blue crystal is nearly old, and the fuel warehouse is worthy of my own escape. Human nature is ugly and greedy, staring at the thousands of fragments of crystal veins outside the cabin. Gu Han's axe was bathed in blood in the top cabin, his knees were weak, his chest was cracked, the green edge was rekindled, and his throat was trembling. Boy, I'm worth fighting in hand-to-hand combat, and my scales and steel teeth will tear apart the heart, lungs, and blood. Yi Ji shook the needle pack and held the prototype capsule in the back cabin, tears mixed with blood, and her eyes were trembling. Brother Gu, hold on. The antidote fog is stable in the green mist, and the medical half-box of empty prototype needle packs are divided into pig arms and the green spots recede. The sour bugs and the brood eat the fully transformed beast. Tang Yue oil the hand-welded crack, sizzled, and sparks choked the screen lock. The beast roared weakly, the engineering steel is dented and heavy, and the rockets and ammunition embedded in it cannot stop the sea of insects. There is no fuel in the retreat nest and the insect mud is burned to dry. Qin Feng's broken wrist hologram madly clicked on the green veins. He sweated and burst into invisible glue mist. He breathed heavily, boss, God brain. The Beast King's belly crystal controls the pulse lock of the inner ghost, and the core door steel bites the kilometer trap. Pigs and dogs betray the crystal. Deep in the shadows, the high-heeled steel boots stepped on the blood and mud, and the Skyhaven noble leader's face twisted and sneered. The screen flashed with residual electricity. His blood-stained azure crystal necklace pulse synchronized with the Beast King's green light. He breathed contemptuously and taunted, Xiao Yi, the boy of God. Skyhaven, Skyhaven, I own the virus azure crystal experiment, mutation. The beasts enslave the pigs and dog survivors to the immortal army. The mole sells information to stabilize the situation. The pigs of the iron-blooded alliance kneel down and lick the fuel warehouse. 80 barrels of clean water, 449 liters of compressed rations, 1,800 bars, I control the Beast King and strip it naked. The green mist blasts the Beast King, the blue-eyed ghost fire stares at the round iron beast, and the abdominal crystal pulse, boom, accelerates the sea of insects. Boom. The gray shell hit the deep recess in the steel of the bulkhead, and the blood sprayed out and roasted his lungs. He laughed wildly and twisted his eyes with flames. Gu Han, the king of hand-to-hand combat. Leg holes, chest cracks, green edges, I am torn apart by the beast's claws. Leaf flower spray. Synthetic antidote to melt the corpse. The team is scattered, and the ugly human nature peels off the blue crystal mother body. 1,000 pieces of the mother body are swallowed by 1,000 years old. The pigs' pupils shrank, their noses were stagnant, their breath was stagnant, they were trembling in fear, and they knelt down in the pool of blood and roared, the leader of the noble pig dog. The god leader slaughtered the ghost, and the fuel warehouse vowed to peel it off. Gu Han's blood-stained eyes exploded and the axe hit the bulkhead. Pa! Martian roared, noble dog. I owe you a favor by leaping over the tower to kill the bird king. I'll skin you for wolf meat. But his legs were sore and he bent over with the prototype capsule wrapped in green edges and rekindled the hot thorn. The team's heart sank and the lead-pressed villain taunted him like a knife. Xiao Yi's eyes exploded with cold flames. The energy gun in the driver's seat buzzed and the heat pipe made his brain sticky. Psychological games flashed in his mind. The aristocratic leader controlled the pulse to test the ultimate, the pigs and dogs killed the chickens to scare the monkeys, the liquid nitrogen freezing channel electromagnetic pulse paralyzed the beast king at the back, Gu Han attracted fire and exposed the abdominal crystal, Tang Yue dismantled the mechanical door and embedded the rocket, Qin Feng ghost stole the crystal, Yi Jihe's ultimate antidote disintegrated the green mist, and the alliances. Peripheral pigs contained the iron-blooded logistics of the residual beast transportation line. The corner of his mouth raised and he cut the iron in a low voice, reverse. The iron beast locked the core door and punched it. Tang Yue removed the mechanical door and embedded the liquid nitrogen tube electromagnetic coil. Gu Han jumped to the roof to attract the firepower of the beast claw. Qin Feng stole thousands of abdominal crystal mother bodies invisibly. Yi Ji combined the antidote in the back cabin to explode with full frequency, and the mine circle rockets outside the pig group contained the remaining insects. To transport fuel to the warehouse, I activate the pulse palace to sweep the paralyzed pulse. The noble dog will be skinned and exposed to the public, and the fuel will be peeled off if it violates it. The blue crystal data of the screen exploded with green flames of the holographic projection. The psychological balance. Sacrificed the traitorous pig to establish prestige, and the beast king was paralyzed by 90% and his morale exploded to establish a new order. The pupils of the crowd suddenly shrank, the pigs knelt down in the blood pool, their noses were stagnant, and they stared round and shouted, iron-blooded leader of God. I will hunt and patrol the outer area with rockets and mines to death, and fuel, purified water, rations, and warehouse transportation will be strictly exploited by the traitorous nobles. Gu Han's blood-stained eyes exploded with flames, and he held the white knot of his axe to try to jump into the cabin. He bent over in pain but laughed wildly, boy, what a miracle. I was seriously injured and attracted a leaping slaughter claw, team member. The iron beast reversed the car and, boom, sprayed the insect pit with acid, white smoke and rancidity, and rushed towards the core door with, creak, biting open the steel veins and exploding with green mist. The core steel cavity torch reflected the chaos of the pigs, the outer welding rocket tower, sizzling, steel biting sparks, the sea of residual insects swishing, claws to tear the iron beast's roof pit deep and bloody and fleshy pieces sprayed out. Gu Han's arms were hot and painful, and his axe whirlwind, whooshing, leaped to the top of the cabin and cut off the claws. Pft! Blue crystal fragments rained down. Ding ding. The blood fell into the pool and was scalding with acid. He roared and his throat trembled, come on, noble dog. I have holes in my legs, a crack in my chest, and a green side to protect me. The insects and beasts will be destroyed. Yi Ji boiled the ultimate in the back cabin. The antidote mist, Gulu, is a pungent green-blue sea fused with 200 pieces of blue crystal fragments. The full-frequency mist explodes outside the cabin and hisses, wrapped in a steel cavity. The green spots of infected insects recede and half fall into the acid pit. It's enough time. I transported 80 barrels of fuel, 449 liters of compressed rations, 1,800 logistics rockets, crossbow nets, heat pipes, and all the red mine circles were opened to kill the remaining insects. Tang Yue oil hand-welded the mechanical door, Z, and disassembled the electromagnetic coil embedded in the liquid nitrogen tube and buzzed the pulse net for hundreds of times. The iron beast slid sideways and the blood mud cracked, and the frozen tunnel cracked, and the electromagnetic buzzed pre-charge roar, the pinnacle of engineering. The mechanical door opens and the liquid nitrogen freezes the electromagnetic paralysis, and the Beast King's abdominal crystal lock explodes. Qin Feng cuts off his wrist and ghosts move through the invisible fog. The head of the aristocracy twisted his face and sneered, deformed and wrapped himself in green mist. He manipulated the crystal chain. Buzz. The pulse of the Beast King's belly crystal accelerated wildly. Lu, the tail whip hit the iron beast and rolled over. The blood pool was churning and green liquid spurted out. Gu Han's chest was cracked on the roof of the claw cave, and the dark green edge was bursting with blood and hot waves. He bent over in pain and the axe spin guard roared with wet throats, "Boy! I have exhausted all my attraction points. The mutated claws are tearing apart the lungs and the family is scattered." The nitrogen pipe froze halfway and the frost cracked, but the beast's tail whip broke the pipe, white smoke exploded and choked her lungs. She coughed and yelled, "The project is broken. The mutated pulse is anti-freeze, and the electromagnetic embedded in the door is in danger." Qin Feng Guiying stole 1,000 crystals, invisible mist-shattering claw shadow chased, swish, blue crystal and almost fell into the blood pool. He broke his wrist and screamed with blood, intelligence danger. It is difficult for the leader to control the beast crystal vein lock to steel. Yiji's mist combined with half green and blue however, the green mist mutated in the sea cabin and the redness and swelling reappeared. She hugged Gu Han's original form with tears streaming down her face and shouted, "Medical pain. The ultimate antidote crystal melts the danger, Brother Gu supports the family." The rocket tower outside the pig group exploded with the remnant insect, but the rebellious two pigs stared at the crystal veins with greedy eyes and yelled, "The leader of God is trapped. I peel off the blue crystal and swallow the fuel for a full moon." The human nature collapsed, the air was condensed, and the crisis was everywhere. The villain laughed wildly and twisted the flames of his eyes to press the abyss of despair. Xiao Yuan's eyes are cold and the aristocrat controls the psychological game. After the second-level mutation test, his hands are fully opened, the liquid nitrogen channel freezes 90% of the electromagnetic pulse overload and paralyzes the pulse, and Gu Han's team is worth the iron blood of the Alliance. Finger taps wildly on the main control of the driving screen to activate the ultimate trap, buzz, liquid nitrogen full-frequency explosion channel ice, crack, sealing insect sea ash shell freezes and cracks, pop, white smoke stings the nose and freezes the lungs, electromagnetic pulse, boom, 1,000-meter steel cavity thunder net explodes the Beast King's belly crystal pulse, ZZ. Green mist evaporates and paralyzes the scales twitching, Golu growls into despair, his energy gun fires blue light holes in the noble arm, blood flowers the sticky crystal chain was broken and the green veins were weak. The noble leader's face was twisted in despair, his nose was stagnant and his throat was filled with regret. He yelled, "God boy! The virus blue crystal has shattered the dream of eternal life. I control the Legion to dominate the apocalypse, how can I trap the paralyzed pulse and peel it off?" The crystal cracks in the Beast King's abdominal crystal cracked the green liquid and putrid and hot earth pulse stopped. Boom, became silent, the ice of the frozen corpse mountain in the sea of insects cracked and the rain hit the cavity and, pop, the rotten stench of frozen steaming heat and cold stung the lungs. The pigs outside stared at the liquid nitrogen electromagnetic eyes, shrank their noses, rolled their throats, and knelt down in admiration, shouting, "The ultimate trap of the brain." Liquid nitrogen freezes the electromagnetic paralysis of the Beast King, and the fuel warehouse is worth my luck and I am robbing the nobles. Gu Han's axe stuck in his claws on the roof of the cabin and he knelt down in a blood bath, gasping for blood. Xiao Yi glared at Xiao Yi with wet eyes and roared, his throat trembling, "Boy, God's climax. I've attracted all the injuries in hand-to-hand combat and jumped to the top, God owes a favor to the rebirth team." Tang Yue completely dismantled the mechanical door, and his hands trembled with a trembling smile, his eyes burned wildly, and he turned to the rocket and roared, "Work Chengshen is at his peak. The door is opened, the crystal is stolen, the liquid nitrogen electromagnetic spider web is opened, the Beast King is paralyzed and the corpse is dissolved." Qin Feng's holographic projection crystal veins cut off the green line and roared with sweat, "God's intelligence lock." 1,000 pieces of crystals are completely peeled off, the source of the virus is recorded, and the evidence is controlled by the leader. Update. Yi Mist's ultimate synthetic green-blue sea full frequency, hissing, covered the infection in the cavity and reduced the redness and swelling. Her tears were smooth and soft, and she hugged her arms and shouted, "The medical is stable. The antidote will make the green spots disappear forever." The leader of the villain's aristocracy knelt down in pain from the blood spring in his arm. He knelt in a pool of blood, and the green mist-scattered crystal chain was broken. Ding, ding, his breath was weak, despair, twisted tears, mixed blood and regret rolled in his throat. "Xiao Yi. I am Skyhaven's high-ranking aristocrat. The blue crystal dream controls the internal ghost to stabilize the eternal army. Pigs and dogs' allegiance to the fuel warehouse are stripped naked. Why did God trap the paralyzed Beast King and break his pulse? Sparing his life and loyal to the iron-blooded alliance." The ugliness of human nature collapsed and he knelt down and licked the bloody mud and roared. Xiao Yuan's eyes were buzzing with cold flames and the energy gun was pointed at the leader's forehead. The psychological game was deep, the conspiracy leader proved that the iron-blooded alliance established a new order, and he was skinned and exposed to the public to deter the pigs and dogs from killing decisively. He cut the iron in a low voice, "Late. The source of the virus is skinned and replenished with wolf meat protein, and the dream of eternal life is shattered by the new emperor of the apocalypse." The gunshot, pft. The brains are sticky and the aristocratic corpses are turned over in the green liquid pool. Roar, God leader kills. The ghosts of the nobles are stripped for public display. 80 barrels of fuel, 449 liters of rations, 1,800 barns, full moon, I swear to death for the hunting patrol project. The team's heart flames exploded, the steel cavity burst into blood, the moon burst into grey mist, and the iron beast's tracks boomed to crush the frozen corpse pit. The acid ice spray team took inventory of thousands of crystals. The rocket embedded with the antidote was old enough. Gu Han was bathed in blood and gasping with laughter. "Boy, the leader of the divine slaughter. I am seriously injured, my debts are stable, and I can pay back my family." Yi Jimin's needle bag prototype, with soft tears in her eyes, shouted, "The family is safe. The antidote is all green and the mother's nest is clear." Tang Yue dragged the remaining parts of the mechanical door to oil his face. He laughed wildly, the pinnacle of the engineering project. The liquid nitrogen electromagnetic rocket tower crossbow network is embedded with blue crystals, 200+ pieces of heat pipes, red fuel, insect mud, mines, and spider webs are fully opened. Qin Feng's broken wrist hologram expanded the new order map and yelled, "The divine map." The source of the virus destroys the head corpse evidence lock, and the inner ghost camp expands the Iron Blood Alliance by hundreds of pigs. The flames of victory burned with blood, the moon reflected the core steel cavity, the hive was silent with green veins, the corpse of the Beast King dissolved in acid pit, crash, the pungent white smoke mixed with heat and cold, the pigs on the periphery of the alliance were bathed in blood, axes and guns rotated, the logisticians breathed and the flames roared together, the iron-blooded alliance wins. God's ultimate trap, the beast-slaying king peels off his head, the morale explodes and the new order is full. All eyes are on it. Staring at Xiao Yi, pupils constricted, trembling, throat rolling, bowing in worship, kneeling down in the blood pool, the fluorescent buzzing in the putrid smell, the air became warm, the grey mist dispersed, and the new emperor's breath pressed down on the ruins of the apocalypse. The blood moon hangs low, and the grey fog slowly disperses. The putrid heat wave in the 1,000-meter-long steel cavity at the core of the brood gradually condenses into pungent frosty white smoke. The green liquid from the dissolved body of the beast king flows into the acid pit, making a low, sizzling sound, and the air is mixed with the fresh earthy smell of blood and victory. The iron beast's tracks crunched lightly against the frozen corpse fragments. The sparks from the welding of the pits in the roof cabin were extinguished. The blue light of the screen softly swept through the silent green veins, showing that the source of the virus was locked. The evidence of the corpse of the leader of the Skyhaven nobles was holographically preserved. The herd of pigs expanded to 100, their noses were steady with bloody mud on their dirty faces, and the lingering flames in their pupils were still lingering. The axes and spears they knelt beside the pool of blood formed a hill. Their throats rolled. When they stared at Xiao Yi's abyss, their eyes widened as if they were about to burst. Their trembling voices lengthened into a low roar of worship, "Leader of God, the new emperor of the iron-blooded alliance. Skin the aristocrat's mole, and take the pulse of the beast-slaying king. The fuel warehouse is full, and I will fight to the death to hunt and patrol the logistics." A former rebel pig, with the green spots on the prototype needle bag just retreating, hit his knees with a snap, blood and mud splashed with hot blood, his breath was as heavy as a bellows, his eyes were filled with tears and he shouted, "I am greedy for crystal veins, and the ultimate trap of the brain awakens me. Skinning to show public value, the family alliance will not break up." The corner of Xiao Yi's mouth rose sharply, his eyes swept across the steel cavity, and the psychological game turned, counting the fruits of victory. Thousands of crystals embedded with antidote rockets are enough to live forever, but the remaining poison of human nature has not been cleared away, and the distribution warehouse must be iron-blooded and powerful. He tapped the driving screen with his finger, and the holographic projection exploded the resource library map. The steel door in the depths of the brood was half destroyed, the fuel barrels piled high, the water purification tanks flashed silver, the compressed ration boxes stacked in towers, and the blue crystal fragments were alluring with green veins. He cut the iron in a low voice, "Pan." Tang Yue sealed the warehouse with welded steel mesh for export, Qin Feng holographic lock flank residual veins, Yi Ji decomposed the drug prototype Qin virus, Gu Han's axe suppressed the rebellious pigs, pig groups were transported to warehouses, fuel 80 barrels of purified water, 449 liters of rations, 1,800 wolf meat protein, noble corpse skinning, blue crystal 1,000-piece embedded rocket tower crossbow net heat pipe, red mine circle spider web fully opened iron beast track. Reinforcement. Violators will be skinned and fueled. As soon as the words were spoken, the air in the steel cavity froze. The pigs were stagnant, their pupils were shrinking and their knees were weak and they were staring at each other. A few eyes stared at the fragments of crystal veins scattered on the ground. Their hands trembled as they scratched the wolf meat protein, and their throats rolled and whispered, "Shenkura." I swallowed one more bucket of yuezu. The ugliness of human nature reappeared like a green mist. The team's heart sank slightly, and there was a faint sour smell in the grey mist. Gu Han knelt in a blood bath and panted, the blood fountain with the claws of the battle axe dried up, the leg holes and chest were cracked, and the green-edged prototype capsule was wrapped firmly. The heat hurt and he bent down, but the blood and eyes burst out, the axe handle hit the ground with a pop and sparks flew, and he glared at those greedy pigs and roared and moistened his throat, "Bullshit. This kid owes me a favor to be reborn. You dare to be greedy when you skin the corpses of nobles to replenish wolf meat? I'm so wounded that I leapt to the top to butcher the claw guards, so I'll skin you with an axe to replenish the public warehouse." The 10 heads in the row were weak and trembling with fear, their noses were heavy and their heads were spitting out blood and mud. They glared at Gu Han's axe blade with cold eyes and shrank and shouted, "King of hand-to-hand combat. I am greedy and swear to be strict with my fate. The family will not be separated. Yi Ji's eyes were soft and tearful. At the end of the month, the aristocratic corpse peeling protein injection package is empty. The team is holding on. The pig's arm was red and swollen, staring at Yi Ji. Tang Yue shivered and knelt down. Miracle Doctor hugs me. I will fight to the death with my arms steady on the hunting patrol rocket tower crossbow net. Tang Yue smiled tremblingly. The welding gun, ZZ, sealed the steel mesh at the exit, and the steel mesh was choked. She turned the wheel wildly, and the electromagnetic coil embedded in the liquid nitrogen tube buzzed the pulse network, shouting Tang Yue, the top of the project, the peak is sealed. The rocket is welded to death with 200+ pieces of blue crystal embedded in the heat pipe. The red mine circle is opened, and the fuel bug mud repair track is severely damaged. Qin Feng broke his wrist and broke out in sweat. The green line of the remaining veins on the flanks of the hologram projection flashed. He ghosted through the fog and wrapped his body with a sword to lock the crystal veins. He yelled, "The source of the virus is clear. The Skyhaven conspiracy is locked, and the intelligence of the internal ghost camp to spread the Iron Blood Alliance is fully revealed." Just when the inventory was in full swing, there was a muffled boom deep in the steel cavity. The green liquid in the acid pit of the Beast King's corpse was churning. Gulu, the cracks in the abdominal crystal of the ultimate guardian beast exploded and green mist surged wildly, and the remaining pulse, boom, roared again. The scales that should have been paralyzed twitched, the tail whip smashed into the deep dent in the steel of the warehouse door, the fragments dinged and sprayed out blood, the putrid heat wave roasted the lungs, and the gray shells of the flanking insects broke through the ice and frost, and sharp claws emerged from the road-gnawing acid fountain. The white smoke was pungent. Hundreds of pigs had their pupils shrunk and their noses were stagnant. The transportation barrels were dumped with fuel and the ground was slippery. Their knees were weak and they roared with fear. The king of beasts counterattacked. The abdominal crystal pulses and the green mist engulfed the warehouse. Half of the fuel and purified water rations were destroyed. God leader. I am in danger of losing my luck. The team's heart flames dimmed, the gray fog froze and the lead pressure was desperate. Gu Han held the white joint of his axe and tried to jump, bending over in pain and screaming with blood, "Boy! I am seriously injured, tail whip is worth it. Smash the steel dent in the warehouse door, peel off the crystal to mend it." Yi Ji shakes the prototype and hugs the prototype with tears and yells, "Medical insurance." The green mist bites back and reddens, and the sea of antidote fog can't wrap it up. Tang Yue's welding net broke and sparks burst into coughs. The project is half closed. The sea of residual vein insects on the flanks eats the exit, and the rocket is in danger of being embedded. Qin Feng's holographic green line flashed wildly and exploded in sweat. Intelligence exploded. The Beast King finally counterattacked and destroyed the warehouse, and the supergiant vein lurked in the second catastrophe. Xiao Yuan's cold eyes locked the crystal cracks in his belly, and the psychological game flashed. The aftermath test. The crystal bait exploded the center and opened the hand, reversing and reaping the full harvest. The corners of his mouth were raised, and he tapped the screen with his fingers to activate the holographic projection of thousands of blue crystal fragments. The pulse of green light induced the Beast King's will-o'-the-wisp's blue eyes and growled, "Golu." The leader's residual pulse, Tang Yue exit rocket exploded on the flank, Qin Feng's ghost detonated the deep warehouse, Yi Ji's mist was wrapped in full frequency to clear the virus, the pig herd's mind circle restrained the tail whip, my energy gun whole crystal pulse destroyed half of the warehouse to replenish it. Damage, the iron-blooded alliance's eternal new home is about to attack. The pupils of the crowd shrank suddenly, and the pigs gasped and stared in admiration. They knelt down and yelled, "The aftermath of the god's brain is reversed. The crystal decoys the central mine and the rocket will kill me, and the fuel warehouse is worth half of it." Massive amount. Gu Han's blood-stained eyes exploded and he whirled his axe over the door of the library. His tail decapitating whipped, and the blue liquid sprayed hot and scalding his arms. He bent over in pain and roared wildly, "Young man! I'll behead my brain to protect the library, and my family's debt will be repaid. The crystal bait buzzed, with green light exploding into the central steel cavity. The Beast King's abdomen crystal pulse flashed wildly, boom, the scales twitched and the tail whip smashed against the warehouse door, snap, the steel shattered and sprayed out, the fuel barrel was half destroyed and clean water spilled on the ground, smash, the slippery green liquid mixed with putrid smell steamed into the sky. But massive resources were poured out, the compressed ration tank collapsed and thousands of them rolled out, the fuel barrel collapsed and 80+ spare barrels were sprayed with insect mud to replenish the moon, and tens of thousands of blue crystal fragments rained down and embedded in the rocket tower, crossbow net, heat pipe, red mine circle and spiderweb peak. Tang Yue oil hand welded the outlet and sealed the outlet with a Zizi bazooka, whoosh, blasting the ash shells of the flanking insect, breaking the rain with pop and white smoke choking her lungs. She laughed wildly and roared, "Seal the project." The flank cleared half of the warehouse and replenished it massively. The Iron Beast's tracks were embedded with blue crystals and reborn. He broke out with sweat and roared back, "God detonated." The evidence of the source of the virus is locked in the library, and the second catastrophe map is updated. Yi boiled the green-blue sea fog and, "Gudu," the whole voice was hissing. Gu Han's axe-top tail whipped, the blue crystal shattered and burned the ground, slashed into the remaining veins of the abdominal crystal, creak, the green liquid fountain's heat wave roasted his lungs, the green edge of his chest cracked again, the pain returned, he bent over and knelt in the blood bath, gasped and roared, his throat was wet, "Boy, I'll kill all my worth." The divine bait explodes the central beast. The library collapsed and half the sea was destroyed. Xiao Yi's energy gun buzzed and fired continuously at the core of the blue light cave crystal. The sticky green mist of the brain evaporated, the pulse, bang, went silent, the ultimate guardian beast collapsed and the mountain of corpses cracked. Hundreds of pigs stared at the liquid nitrogen electromagnetic rocket. Their pupils shrank, their noses were stagnant, their throats were stagnant, they rolled their heads in worship and knelt down in the pool of blood, shouting, "God's leader, the crystal decoys the center." The Beast King finally counterattacked, destroying half of the warehouse and overwhelming the nest. The fuel, purified water, rations, blue crystal wolf meat protein warehouse doubled every month and full year. Sure, all the minefields and the logistics mines of my hunting patrol project have been opened and slaughtered. A pig arm injection prototype, eyes widened, trembling and elongated, glowing, breathing loudly, hugged by the miracle doctor's mist. The green spot will retreat to its home forever, and the god's brain will attack the new home to death. The steel cavity is getting warmer, the gray mist has dispersed and the blood moon reflects on the resources mountain. The Iron Beast screen monitors the green veins and is completely silent. The hologram is updated, the Iron Blood Alliance expands and the morale of the 100 pigs explodes. The New Order map expands the core of the ruins. The remains of the second catastrophe fortress are awakened and the supergiant beast veins are locked in the back. Gu Han gasped and laughed, eyes wet with blood, he glared at Xiao Yi and yelled, "Boy, the aftermath is a counterclimax. I'm so seriously injured that I owe you a lot of kindness, and our team's huge warehouse will last forever." Yi Zhifen's needle bag covered the sea, her eyes were soft with tears, and she held her arms and shouted, "The family is safe forever." The Antidote and Virus Alliance's medical treatment is all over the 100 pigs. Tang Yue was dragging his face and laughing wildly, taking stock, the peak of the project. Half of the warehouse was destroyed, and the rocket tower crossbow network was embedded with blue. Thousands of crystals, red fuel, worms, mines, spider webs, iron beasts, air defense, all activated. Qin Feng's holographic image expanded and yelled, "God's intelligence." The evidence of the Skyhaven conspiracy is broken, and the raiders' camp is broken, and the path to the new home is open. The pigs transported the barrels and boxes and piled up the towers, snorting and roaring. Tong Yen said, "The Iron-Blooded Alliance has won the aftermath. The gods attack and slaughter the super-giant beasts to build an eternal fortress, and the new Emperor Xiao Yi's family is full and full." Xiao Yi scanned the crowd and played a deep psychological game. He had collected all the fruits, fame, status and treasures. Human nature shocked the establishment of a new order, and he was determined to attack the super beast veins deep in the ruins and rebuild the eternal home of civilization. The corner of his mouth was raised, and he spoke in a low voice, "General attack." The Iron Blood Alliance expands the division of labor among hundreds of pigs to hunt, patrol, and project logistics. The second catastrophe is coming, and they will slaughter all the beasts and dominate the apocalypse. The crowd's eyes widened and they knelt down in admiration. The warm air flowed over the ruins. The sense of victory and accomplishment was like the blood moon warming the steel cavity. The rotten smell turned into a new earthy fragrance, and the team's heart flame burned forever. The blood moon climbed up to the sky of the ruins. The steel cavity resource mountain was clattering, with a thunderous sound of transporting warehouses. The fuel barrels were doubled and stacked with insect mud and blue crystals to reinforce the dim light. The water purification tank's silver tower reflected the red light and compressed rations. 100 pigs of the Iron Blood Alliance were breathing blood and mud. Their faces were twisted. They were carrying buckets and boxes on their shoulders and hitting the ground with their knees, and the heat was splashing. Their pupils were blazing as they stared at Xiao Yi and shouted, "The God Emperor's general attack." The massive warehouses are double the number of months and years. I am hunting, patrolling, project logistics, and slaying super beasts to build the eternal castle. Fortress. The air is warm and fragrant, and the team's heart flames are like fire burning the steel cavity, but the sour smell is faintly rekindled at the edge of the gray fog. The red hologram on the screen flashes. The ruins of the second catastrophe fortress are falling and the shock wave is approaching, and the pulse of the super giant beast is looming deep in the ruins and is roaring like the heart of the earth. The iron beast's tracks crunched to crush the corpse out of the cavity, and the blue crystals in the roof were welded and sealed firmly. Tang Yue's oily hands were wiping sweat and laughing loudly, rebirth at the peak. The liquid nitrogen electromagnetic pulse network rocket tower is fully activated. The super beast's vein map is locked in the nuclear explosion crater in the ruins, and the fuel insect mud is doubled and has no worries. The holographic projection of Qin Feng's broken wrist expanded. The green line flashed wildly on the flanks and the remnants of the marauder camp were scurrying around. He wrapped his ghost shadow in the fog and flashed the lock crystal and roared. The inner ghost dispersed the camp and broke. The evidence of the conspiracy of the Skyhaven nobles will last forever, but the supergiant vein belly crystal is 10 times the Beast King. The wreckage fell to the ground and cracked the ruins and destroyed the trap. The path of the general attack is dangerous. Gu Han inserted his axe into the ground and gasped with blood in his eyes. Laughing, the chest-cracked green-edged prototype capsule was wrapped in pain and bent over to try to jump. Hoo-hoo. He glared at the pigs and roared with trembling throat, "Pigs and pigs. The God Emperor owes me a lot of favors. Are you greedy for the huge public warehouse? I am so injured that I am worth the entire team, and the axe will peel off the supergiant scales with a total attack." Yi Zhizhi covered all the sea with needles, her eyes were filled with tears and she was holding everyone's arms. Jian roared, "Medical forever." The antidote mist is all green, and the pig-armed arm stabilizes the big alliance to support the attack. The pigs in the front row stared at each other with weak knees, their breaths were stagnant, staring greedily at the rain of blue crystals, grabbing the wolf meat with trembling hands and whispering, "Double the amount of God's warehouse." I swallowed one more ration to be full. The ugly green mist of human nature loomed, and the team's heart sank slightly. Xiao Yi's cold eyes swept away the crowd, and the psychological game flashed. Massive fruits tested the new order. The second catastrophe of supergiant beast veins became the final level, and the remaining poison of the inner ghost was stripped away to build civilization. The corner of his mouth was raised, and he cut the iron in a low voice, "Attack." The iron beast leads 100 pigs to attack the core of the ruins. Qin Feng scouts to clear the way. Tang Yue traps the forward and embeds the rocket tower. Gu Han's axe suppresses the middle army. Yi Zhiwu protects the logistics. My god brain locks the supergiant center. The ghost inside the predator appears and is skinned. Fuel is out. As soon as he finished speaking, the air in the steel cavity froze, and hundreds of pigs shrank and knelt down, shouting, "Iron-blooded Emperor of God. The general attack will destroy our family forever." The iron beasts roared into the grey fog, the tracks crushed corpses and the fishy wind hit their faces, and the blood moon stretched out like an iron river rushing towards the ruins. Deep in the ruins, the remains of the fortress smashed into the ground with a bang, and the earth was cracked by earthquake waves. The grey fog was as thick as ink and putrid, roasting the lungs. The pulse of the crystal in the veins of the super beast's veins roared with a bang. The scaly mountain twitched and its tail whip 100 meters away, snapped, and swept away the fragments of the collapsed steel beams with a ding, and the rain fell harshly. Thousands of remnants of the predator camp sprang out, staring at the iron beast's warehouse tower with dirty faces and bloody armor, and roared, "The Iron Blood Alliance has massive fuel blue crystals. The ghosts of the nobles are taking revenge, grabbing the warehouse and slaughtering pigs to build a new Skyhaven." Arrows rained, swish, and black clouds pressed down on the top of the iron beast, explosions, boom, and fire waves burned the armor, and the pigs transported barrels and boxes to the warehouse. The pouring fuel was wet and slippery, and his knees were weak and he was afraid of roaring and his breath was stagnant. The inner ghost is surrounded by thousands of people. The arrow explodes and destroys the warehouse. The God Emperor. I am in danger of losing my family. Qin Feng's ghost shadow moved through the fog and the holographic red alert flashed with sweat and roared, "Scout explosion." The path of the predator's inner ghost's ambush is blocked, and the supergiant pulse awakens to swallow the camp for a second catastrophe. Tang Yue the welding gun broke, sparks embedded in it, the rocket tower turned sideways, the heat pipe buzzed red, and the mine circle did not open. The project is dangerous. The wreckage destroyed half of the trap, and the arrows rained down on the tracks of the iron-eating beast. Gu Han whirled his axe and jumped to the top. Whoosh, and slashed through the arrow rain. Pft! Hot blood spurted out. He bent over in pain and knelt down in a bath of blood, gasping and shouting, "Boy! I'm injured. Protecting the Chinese army, is it worth stripping the inner ghost?" Yi Ji's mist, Gudu, wrapped the logistics in a sea of green and blue, hissing, the redness and swelling returned, and the blood roared, medical pressure. The green mist of Karari bites back, and the sea of antidote can't wrap up 1,000 heads. The team was desperate and the lead pressure was frozen, and the pigs glared at each other and ran away. The warehouse is destroyed. I swallowed the food and ran away. Xiao Yuan's eyes locked on the leader of the predators, the aristocratic remnant, and the psychological game took a deep turn. The mole used bait to clear the way, the supergiant used the power to slaughter thousands of people, and the massive public warehouse established its power with iron blood. He clicked the energy gun wildly with his fingers, buzz, blue light shot into the head's chest, the green slurry fountain was rotten and steaming to the sky. He cut the iron in a low voice, "No." The hologram of the blue crystal fragments lured the inner ghost center. Qin Feng's ghostly shadow attracted the rocket. The tower exploded in the camp. Tang Yu's mind circle and spider web opened the road. Gu Han's axe leapt to kill the leader. Yi Ji's spray was used to clear the Karari poison. The pigs and wolves fought bloody battles. The supergiant pulse test in my gun hole was opened, and the inner ghost was destroyed with thousands of heads, and the public warehouse was destroyed. Double replenishment of super beast crystals. The pupils of the crowd shrank suddenly, and the pigs gasped and stared in admiration. They knelt down and shouted, "The devil and the Emperor of God. The blue crystal lures me to fight to the death in a bloody mine, and the public warehouse is worth destroying the sea of replenishment crystals." Gu Han, the blood-eyed flames exploded, the axe and the rain of arrows popped, shattering sparks burned his arms, and he jumped into the camp to behead his head and, crunched, his head was covered in hot blood and mud. He roared in pain and laughed wildly, "You kid, it's a trick. I owe you a favor by killing the ghost and guarding the road." Thousands of blue crystal fragments buzzed and green lights exploded in the center of the camp. Thousand-headed will-o'-the-wisps of the marauders with blue eyes widened and roared, "Gulu," and attacked the iron beasts. Arrows rained down at the iron beasts. Whoosh, exploded the half-destroyed fuel barrels beside the warehouse. Boom, fire waves shot up into the sky, but Tang Yue welded the mind circle with his oily hands. Zzz, the spider web opened and, pop, the thousands of heads and legs were broken with an ear-splitting squeak. The rocket tower, swoosh, the red heat pipe induced the fire net to steam the ash shells of thousands of armors, the rain fell and the white smoke stung her nose, she smiled with cracked eyes and roared, "The project is sealed. The path of the inner ghost's camp is clear, the iron beast tracks are embedded with blue crystals double rebirth in the public warehouse." Qin Feng's broken wrist knife flashed the ghost shadow and ran deep into the camp to detonate the electromagnetic pulse, boom, and the green veins evaporated. The inner ghost roared and his throat was shattered. He broke out in sweat and yelled back, "God's guide. The virus conspiracy evidence has all the inner ghosts, and the supergiant vein path is locked." Yi boiled the sea of fog Karari wrapped in full frequency, hisses, green fades away redness and swelling, and the prototype needle package is divided into pigs and roars, medical Kayanaga. The family support bloody battle alliance expands to thousands and swears to death. The pigs eat wolf meat protein, blood-red eyes and snorts roaring, axes and guns pile up the mountain of blood, and the ghost corpses are broken into pieces and, snap, splashes hot and fishy. The supergiant beast's pulse awakened and the ground cracked with a boom boom. The belly crystal with 10 times the scale of the beast king rose from the ground with a pop, and the tail whip swept away the steel beams of the remaining camp. The tail whip destroyed Lu Gongsun, and the god emperor, I was scattered and destroyed. Gu Han slashed the ghost Yu's huge leg with an axe. The blue liquid spurted out in pain and he bent over and yelled, "Boy, I'm worth it, my pulse is peeling off." The team's heart flames were extinguished and the grey mist suppressed despair. Xiao Yi's energy gun locks the crystal in the abdomen, and his fingers activate the blue crystal 1,000-piece rocket tower in the top chamber of the iron beast to fully open, buzzing, cutting the iron in a low voice, "General reverse." The crystal bait locks the supergiant center, Gu Han cuts off the tail, Tang Yu's liquid nitrogen spider web seals the legs, Qin Feng the pulse bank is deep, the sea of fog is green, the pigs are restrained by mines, the core of our gun cave is destroyed by the second catastrophe, and the new home of civilization is opened. The crowd's throats widened and they knelt down and yelled, "The God Emperor attacks. I, the crystal explosion center, will kill all the beasts." The green light of the crystal bait explodes, the pulse of the belly crystal flashes wildly, the giant scales twitch and the tail whip smashes the wreckage, the ground cracks into the abyss, the clean water ration next to the warehouse is destroyed by 30%, and the slippery green liquid is rotten and steaming. Gu Han's axe tip and tail whip, the broken blue crystal rain scalds his lungs, and it cuts into the veins of his legs, crack, the heat wave of the green spring, his chest crack rekindles the blood bath, he kneels and shouts, his throat is wet, "Come, little boy. I will do my best to protect my family." Tang Yue welded the liquid nitrogen pipe, the spider web, plop, sealed the legs and shattered the ash shell, the rocket exploded and the remaining veins on the flanks evaporated white smoke and roared, "Peak seal." The supergiant legs destroy the iron beast's air defense. Qin Feng's ghost shadow library deep pulse, boom, green steam roar, the path is clear. The source of the conspiracy is the supergiant mother vein lock. Yiji's atomizer wrapped her mouth with "Gudu" and the green retreat roared, "The eternal family is stable." Xiao Yi buzzed, the crystal core in the cave belly, puff, the sticky green mist of the brain evaporated, the pulse was silent and the giant mountain of collapsed corpses, tack, smashed into the ruins. The putrid smell of cold and heat was pungent to the nose. The pigs' eyes widened, their breath stuttered, and they saluted and roared, "The God Emperor crystal lures and slaughters the supergiant. The veins of all beasts are destroyed and the second catastrophe is wiped out. The massive warehouses are tripled to replenish the fuel and the blue crystal wolf meat antidote is enough. I will expand the hunting patrol project and swear to the death of the new emperor." A pig's arm was injected with the prototype, tears mixed with mud and trembling shouts, hug from the miracle doctor. Lu Yong retreats from the family, and the civilization of the brain is eternal. The ruins turn to a warm blood moon and illuminate a new earthy fragrance. The green silent hologram on the Iron Beast screen is updated, the Iron Blood Alliance expands and the morale of 1,000 pigs explodes. The ruins of the New Order map are fully controlled. The source of the virus, the Skyhaven noble brood, is permanently destroyed. The cornerstone of the civilizational fortress is locked in the wreckage of the steel beam embedded in the blue crystal tower. Gu Han panted, laughed, stabbed his axe into the corpse, and glared at Xiao Yi with wet eyes. Boy, God will attack and dominate. I will never repay the favor, and the team's debt will last forever. Yi Ji hugged everyone in tears and shouted, full medical coverage. New home is taking root. Tang Yue took stock and laughed wildly, Project New Castle. Rockets. The tower mine circle, blue crystal, 10,000 heat tubes, and red air defense are invincible. Qin Feng shouted, intelligence supremacy. The conspiracy is revealed and the general attack path is always open. The pigs moved the warehouses and piled up the towers and roared, Xiao Yi, the new emperor of the Iron Blood Alliance. Kill thousands of beasts to dominate the end of the world, and the civilized fortress will last forever. Xiao Yi glanced at the New Order, the ultimate psychological game, the growth of an iron-blooded leader, the shocking humanity of massive fruits, and the emergence of a new civilization from the ruins, but there was a red dot flashing at the edge of the screen, a new pulse, boom, deep in the heart of the earth whispered, and the source of the virus may not be limited to Skyhaven. The corner of his mouth was raised, and he spoke in a low voice, build a fort. The Iron Blood Alliance divides labor into a new home, and launches a general attack in the new era of the apocalypse. The unknown pulse, slaughter it. The crowd's eyes widened and their throats rolled in admiration, and they knelt in worship. The warm wind pressed down on the ruins. The feeling of victory was like a blood moon shining forever. The team's hearts burned into the unknown, and the fire of civilization was undying. The black tide surrounded him, the rebellious pig roared and torches burned the road. The heat wave roasted his back. The sea of insects squeaked and the crystal pulse came closer. Gu Han dragged his axe onto the cart leg and blood dripped down the bilge. He glared at Xiao Yi with bloody eyes and gasped, boy. I can't kill all the ghosts inside, the mother's nest is deep. King Yuan Xian's pulse exploded. I'm seriously injured, the team, panicked. Everyone's noses were full of blood and stench, and the dark clouds in their hearts were filled with despair. The iron beasts retreated from the fortress and the grey fog swallowed up the shadows. The green veins beat like the laughter of death for 1,000 meters. The endless abyss of crisis opened.